subscribe to my sister's channel. She will also voice her favorite plots. Let's give her a big asset. They were standing opposite each other. A teenager in a standard shinobi outfit, who has lost his hitayata somewhere, is very battered and insanely tired. And the strongest tailed demon, the quintessence of all tailed ones, Jubi. Rinnegan with 8 volumes drilled Naruto, but its owner was in no hurry to attack, waited, increasingly unnerving the guy with suspense and expectation. The demon felt a part of himself in Naruto and longed to return it. He didn't care about the rest of the midges circling nearby, only interested in that part of the essence that was now in the guy. And for Naruto, they were close people, all 5 Kage, Sai, Kiba, Ino, Sakura. All of them were depressed, they were experiencing the pain of loss. This war left a bitter and harsh seal on everyone, which will harden them if people do not break under the burden of losses. But the worst of all was the girl named after the delicate cherry blossoms. She mourned the death of Sasuke, the death of a loved one who died in front of her, and Sakura could not help. There, about 300 meters away from the frozen opponents, there were many more whom the heir of the will of fire loved, respected or disliked, but now only the demon in front of him was important. And Jubi was looking only at the bearer of a part of his essence, Kurama. Naruto called his friend, "You understand that we can't win, right? I have practically no chakra left. It looks like this is the end." He grinned and cast a fleeting glance at the remnants of the alliance standing behind him. "Maybe you're right. However, there is one way. Dangerous, difficult, but you should succeed, because you are the child of the prophecy." The fox responded in the subconscious, "And what do you suggest?" "Don't pull. One, I won't wait, he can attack at any moment, and I have nothing to oppose him. Tell me your way, you have to seal the Jubi chakra in yourself. I'll show you the technique, but it has serious consequences. If you and I succeed, we, Biju, will all disappear from this world. What will become of you, I do not know, but the chance of your death is very great, and I will not become a Hokage. And I'll never see my friends again. I will not walk through the evening Konoha. I won't go into old Tuchi's shop." A single tear slid down the guy's cheek, but he managed to pull himself together. "It's for them, Kurama, for the sake of peace and happiness of all my friends. Let's do it, Databeo." Kurama grinned contentedly. He had been waiting for this for a very long time. Finally his soul would go to the creator. Old man Rikudo would be glad to see them all again, the fox had no doubt about that. Even though Naruto resembled his father, he strongly resembled him, but the demon never felt any special affection. Kyubi knew the consequences of the technique, knew what its implementation would entail. "That's why I didn't worry too much about the carrier. This technique will probably give him something that the guy has always been deprived of." Naruto folded the seal of concentration and froze. A second later, he quickly reproduced the seals shown to him by Kurama, and saw purple chakra chains that burst out from behind him and rushed towards the demon. Ten-Tailed roared, tried to stop them, but in vain. The chains were already wrapped around Jubi's tails, chaining him to the ground. His terrifying angry roar flew like an explosive wave for hundreds of meters around. Only those who clung to the ground with a chakra could stand on their feet. Naruto himself didn't move an inch, only slightly wincing at the effect. 4 more chains broke out of the Jinchuriki's belly, 2 blue and dark red. They wrapped around the demon's neck and front paws, and a new seal began to form on the shinobi's stomach between the chains. She was like a whirlpool. It seemed that the seal, which was spinning clockwise faster and faster, was about to completely collapse into one point, but this did not happen, and the rotation speed of the whirlpool seal was increasing. A light glow connected the chains, forming a kind of pipe, inside which the lilac chakra of the strongest demon was already flowing. With each passing second, the color became more saturated, until it became dark purple. Jinchuriki's pain-filled cry swept over the battlefield. He was heard by every shinobi who was there, and everyone experienced part of the pain that Naruto got, pain in the name of saving everything. Jubi tried to break free, tried to break the chains, but could not free himself, shrinking in size with every second. The remnants of the alliance, the strongest shinobi watching what was happening, could not decide for themselves what to do. Everyone tried to help, to lend a shoulder, to support, but everyone was stopped by the understanding that they had nothing to oppose Jubi. They would become just a burden, a hindrance for a young boy who was now dying, saving them all. Tsunade and Sakura, the true teacher and student, bloodthirstily squinting, were already coming up with a massacre of the guy who scared them. Yes, the tradition of getting hit on the head even for the most good deeds has become a part of Uzumaki's life. But today their plans were not destined to come to life. Standing next to Kakashi's shinobi with a disfigured face, closely watched the strongest representative of the Uchiha clan in history. Obito realized how ridiculous and absurd the eternal Tsukiyomi's plan was, and now he was ready to rush to Naruto's aid at any moment, to prevent Madara from stopping the guy, not to let him neutralize the ten-tailed one. Too similar, so similar to himself that it made his teeth ache from recognition of himself in this young hero who had not known life. And the oldest Uchiha was angry. His plan, his brainchild, everything he had been striving for many years, could collapse right now, crumbled into dust before his eyes. He cursed Obito, whom he trusted too much, cursed Naruto, who surpassed all expectations, himself, because he was chained to the ground by Koka Shinami and could not use the chakra. With every second everything was losing meaning and he could only wait for his fate, the fate of being sealed. When the last stream of chakra flowed into Naruto's body, the chains scattered into dust, settled by sparkling fragments of chakra. The guy turned to the Shinobi Alliance. We won. Jubi is stopped. He shouted joyfully. Joyful shouts were heard from all sides. The news of victory spread from shinobi to shinobi. A smile lit up everyone's face. Now it remains only to grieve for the dead. There will be no more losses. They will survive. They will learn to live anew. And the terrible days, the days of a terrible bloody war, will settle in the memory and on a huge slab that stands in the central cemetery of the village. They will settle down as a lesson for future generations so that they know and understand that war is scary, scary for losers and winners. There is no joy in it, only grief. It doesn't matter if you win or lose, it takes away the most precious thing from everyone who participated in it. Naruto, Kurama looked sadly at his carrier. It's time for us. Thank you. Now you are the only bearer of Biju and we leave you everything that is left of us. All our strength, as a gift for liberation. In the same second, all the tailed ones disappeared from the subconscious. Only the fox remained, who wanted to say a few more words of farewell. I wish you good luck, Naruto Uzumaki, said Kyubi. I hope you will find the long-awaited happiness, and it's time for you and me. Good luck, Naruto. The power and volume of the chakra left by the tailed ones was amazing. The incredible size of the ball occupied the entire cage left by Kurama. But that wasn't what Uzumaki was concerned about right now. The eyes of his friends, riveted to him, filled with gratitude and care, that's what kept him in this world, did not let him die. Lee, Shikamaru, Ino, Sai, Sakura, Hinata, Tenten, Kiba, Choji, Shino, they were all standing in front of the guy, and Jinchuriki felt that he was closer to them now than ever, and his lips parted in a smile by themselves. And this was the last thing that remained forever in the memory of the people around him. As well as the words goodbye, friends, Naruto began to crumble, turning into dust, which was immediately absorbed into the ground. Even the wind died down, allowing the remains of the war hero to settle on the ground. The screams of friends calling him are all that remained in the blonde's memory before he plunged into darkness. A monument was erected at the place of the death of the great hero. For children, Naruto became a symbol, a role model. Everyone aspired to be like him. The book, Tales of the Fearless Shinobi, began to be sold in countless editions, because everyone knew that the path of the shinobi for the hero began with the pages of this small nondescript volume. A beautiful moonlit night covered the earth with its embrace. Bright stars in the clear sky formed into bizarre constellations. The dark forest around the two travelers rustled with leaves, chirped with night cicadas, occasionally flashed with tiny lights of fireflies. Neither a nocturnal forest predator, nor a man, nor anyone dared to disturb the peace of this serene night. The men walking towards the village were dressed in the standard uniform of Konoha's jonins. They were distinguished only by a radically different hair color and a mask on the face of an ash-blonde man covering the lower part of the face. The shinobi walked in silence, everyone's soul aspired more to their native village, wanting to see relatives and friends, go to their favorite restaurant. Yes, there are few desires after a mission, hard and long. The first body lying in the middle of the road was noticed by a brunette and stopped abruptly. His partner, looking up from the book in his hands, followed his gaze and also froze. There was a young boy lying on the road, about 13 years old, all disheveled, with incomprehensible symmetrical scars on his cheeks. The young man's clothes were badly frayed and were several sizes too big for him. "Hey, Kakashi, we have to help him," the brunette said to his partner worriedly. "Yeah," he waved lazily, "do you care about anything other than your perverted books?" Shinobi flared up. "No," Hatake replied, still without interest. "But why?" "We are shinobi, we have to help those who need help, even if not everyone, but now we have to do it. This is just your opinion, I don't care about the boy, do what you want, but leave me alone." Kakashi waved off and continued on his way. "Fuck you," his partner muttered after him. The brunette lifted the blonde in his arms and carried him towards the village. All the way he looked at his cargo. "He looks very much like Sensei," he concluded when he was already approaching the gate. There was silence in the village, only rarely the shadows of shinobi flashed in some places. Lanterns illuminated the street, lights were still on in some houses. The brunette decided to take his cargo to the hospital. He did not want to carry it home, there were several reasons. After entering the hospital, he went in search of a doctor. "Rin," the brunette shouted, "Obito, don't scream, you're in the hospital." A girl with brown hair, dressed in medical clothes, replied in a whisper, with notes of anger. "I'm sorry," he smiled guiltily, "here it is." She looked at the boy who was being held by Obito, immediately caught herself and led him along. Entering the ward, Rin pointed to the hospital bed. The brunette immediately realized what was what and laid him on the bed. Irene began to examine him, running a glowing green palm over parts of his body. "Where did you find him?" she asked casually. "Well, Kakashi and I were returning from an escort mission and on the way to the village I saw him." He nodded at the boy. He was lying on the ground, there were no traces of wounds, only his clothes were clearly not his size. "Well, so I brought him to you so that you could examine him." The brunette finished the story. "Everything is fine with him, only he has chakra exhaustion and that's it. I think he will come to himself only in 2 or 3 days." The brown-haired woman made the diagnosis. "And what about Kakashi?" "He doesn't care," he replied, looking sad. "Have you noticed? He looks like our sensei," Obito said and nodded at the blonde. "Yes, probably his illegitimate son," Rin jokingly said, to which the brunette gave a nervous laugh and replied, "You just don't say that in front of Kushina-san, otherwise we won't see our Hokage, like Paul Konoha." "Okay, I'll do the tests, there's nothing to do anyway, and I was curious." Rin and Obito left the room, leaving the sleeping Naruto to recover. "Rin, maybe we'll go to a restaurant tomorrow." "Well, we'll eat dango there," Obito offered embarrassedly. "I don't mind," Irene replied. At these words, Obito blossomed and his eyes sparkled with the lights of happiness. "Then, I'll wait for you at lunch at the hospital." Having said that, the brunette quickly left. Rin just smiled and went about her business. POV. Naruto, what happened? This is probably the first question that popped into my head. So, I remember how I sealed the chakra of Jubi and himself into myself. then the tailed ones left their chakra to me and disappeared. Kurama said that, there I will find happiness. What did he mean? We need to try to open our eyes. So. It hurts my eyes, everything is too bright and clear, something is definitely wrong, you need to wait a little. We need to find a mirror. No, you have to get out of bed first. That smell. Am I really in the hospital? That's right, it is. An attempt to stand up. Someone's hand falls on my shoulder and puts me back. Only now I notice that I wasn't alone. I turn around and look at him. I think he's familiar and I've seen him somewhere, but where? I don't remember. Damn it, lie down, you still need rest, you just woke up, he told me. What's with your eyes, what's wrong with them? And who are you? I asked, trying to find out what was going on here. Well, never mind, it's just the first time I see such eyes. Ah, I forgot to introduce myself. I am Uchiha Obito, he replies with a smile. Obito, something familiar. Exactly. He's Kakashi-sensei's teammate. Wait, what is he doing here? Jonan's vest, Konoha's protector, strange orange glasses, everything is fine with the appearance, what's going on? I need to ask you something else. Ah, where am I? You're in Konoha. I found you on the way to the village. How did you get there and what is your name? Well, what should I say to him? I sealed Jubi and I don't know how I ended up near the hidden leaf. No, they will consider it nonsense. We need to come up with something and give an answer. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, but I don't know how I ended up near Konoha. I came up with a pancake. Although I wouldn't have thought of anything better anyway. If it weren't for the lessons of Sensei, Ero-sanin and Granny, I would have blabbed long ago. Another Uzumaki? He exclaimed. And what's the big deal about it? I've always been an Uzumaki, that's Kushina-san will be happy with the newly born clansman. Kushina-san? That's right. Not happening. So where the hell am I? What's going on anyway, and who is the Hokage now? He looks at me in amazement. Is something wrong? I ask him, do you know who the Hokage of the Hidden Leaf Village is? I wonder what kind of wilderness you're from if you don't know that. Namikaze Minato, the fourth Hokage. Okay, I'll look in on you tomorrow and we'll go to the Hokage. Father. He's alive here, but I'm not his son here. How so? But the main thing is that he is alive and so is Mom, but you just need to behave as if I don't know them. We need to look into the subconscious, maybe there are answers there. And Naruto closed his eyes and found himself in his subconscious, like a sewer. Following the already familiar path, he headed to the place where, in his opinion, the cage should be. When he reached his destination, he did not see the cage. Instead there was a transparent barrier inside which there was a ball, in the size of a 10-tailed one. The whole ball consisted of a chakra. So what should I do with it? The blond man asked into the void. Only now he noticed the shelves with scrolls and a table on which lay a piece of paper with the inscription burnt chakra. Happy awakening to you, Naruto Uzumaki. I know you have a lot of questions and they are all almost unanswered. After reading this you will find answers to most of them. The first thing that interests you is where are you? You are in another world, it is similar to yours, but the history of this world is different. There may be alive those who are dead in your world and vice versa. The ball that you see now, as I said, is our chakra, the Biju chakra, now it's yours. It will be replenished as soon as your chakra reserve is full. A lot of things that were not available to you, now you can use. What exactly I won't say, you should find out for yourself, so that life doesn't seem like honey. In the world that you got into, there is no bijou in it. I specifically chose this world so that history would not repeat itself. Your body has changed to a 13-year-old, I did the same. The main thing is not to tell anyone where you are from and about your Biju chakra reserve. If you talk and a war begins, you will become a weapon, as you and we and our kind once were. Shelves with scrolls will help you deal with your new eyes, you will learn the rest yourself. From Kurama. POV. Naruto. So that's how it turned out. As I understand it, this is a kind of payment for that technique, life in another world. It's a strange fee, but I won't complain. Too many bad things happened in that world, too many good people died then. And the war? It could have been the last in the history of the whole world, because we would not have been able to get rid of Jubi if not for this technique. But what purpose should I pursue now? Or go with the flow? I will decide soon, and now I think I will study the scrolls while my physical shell is resting. End. The blond man opened the scroll that was lying first, and did not lose. There was a brief description of the Rinnegan and how to use it. This scroll was written by Kurama. Your eyes have changed now, thanks to all our chakra, you got Rinnegan, these eyes will help you in the future. You won't be able to change to the usual blue eyes for a long time, you need to constantly train them. Rinnegan is not so difficult to use, you will see everything quite clearly and clearly, regardless of visibility and distance. You will add chakras, the effect will increase, the more you invest the chakras the stronger the effect will be, but if you invest too much you will feel very strong pain in the chakras. Everything is needed in moderation. You'll read the rest in the next scroll. The fourth Hokage was sitting at a table in the residence and thinking about the boy Obito had brought. He himself did not go to see it, there are so many things to do, and here is such a trifle that he does not want to waste time. But when he found out that this foundling is very similar to himself, Minato's interest awoke. After learning the name, he still deigned to look at him. After he saw it, self-doubt crept into his head. And didn't I get drunk? Such a thought very often hovered in his head. The most important thing is to explain everything to your wife in time, because the consequences may not be very promising. A knock on the door distracted him from his thoughts. Come in, Hokage said wearily. Sensei, I'm here with a report on the boy. A dark-haired man with orange safety glasses entered the office. Oh, Obito, is that you? Well, what is it? The blond man asked. Well, as you asked, with a full report immediately to you. Belonging to the Uzumaki and Namake's clan has been identified, but there are few genes of these clans. Apparently there is a mixture of other clans present, although the external features of the Namake's clan are well manifested. The analysis also showed that you are related to him, both you sensei and your wife, which is very strange. Hugo checked the chakra circulation system, the focus is well developed for his age, or rather too well. The chakra channels are not very well developed, perhaps he did not even use his chakra. Experts from the Yamanako clan did not find anything in his head, which is very surprising. There is a void, perhaps a barrier or some kind of genome. I will add from myself that he has strange eyes, blue tint with concentric circles from the pupil. It's a dojutsu, I'm sure. The power of these eyes is well felt. Obito Uchiha made a report, very interesting. I want to hear your opinion about him. Minato said, he has potential and needs to be developed, but it is not known where he is from. He doesn't even know who the Hokage of our village is. Namikaze raised his eyebrows in surprise. Yes, I was surprised too. Tomorrow bring him to me, I'll ask him a couple of questions, and then we'll see. Hokage ordered. Obito nodded and left the office. The time was nearing evening, all the Hokage's papers had already been sorted out and was finally going home. Minato was heading home with a slightly brisk step. Passers-by eagerly greeted their ruler, who nodded in response and smiled slightly, and the children who walked next to their parents exclaimed admiringly and looked at the Hokage. Minato stopped at the door and entered the house with a slight apprehension. Taking off his raincoat, he shouted, "Darling, I'm home." There was no answer. A strange premonition crept into his head, but he did not pay attention to it. And why? He's at home, the house is under the signal barrier, and Kushina is not so defenseless. Entering the kitchen, he instantly got a frying pan on his blonde hair. There was a ringing and the sound of a blow, and he sank to the floor, rubbing the resulting bump. His gaze was fixed on the person who did it. Kushina stood in front of him with a frying pan in her hand, her hair divided into 9 strands and was in the air. From her look, a herd of goosebumps ran down Namikaze's back, with the slogan, "Get out, idiot, we still want to live." Minato, Kushina said venomously and affectionately. The voice made him shudder. KKQSHNNA, well, what happened? The crippled husband stammered to his wife, what happened? The red-haired woman hissed, why didn't you tell me that Obito found a boy from the Uzumaki and Namikaze clan? An evil look burned a hole in the Namikaze. I just didn't want to disturb you in advance, maybe it was just a mistake, but today everything was confirmed, the blonde answered with a slight fear, but without hesitation. Kushina's aura disappeared and Namikaze breathed a sigh of relief. And what did you decide about him? The already calm wife asked her husband. Obito believes that the boy has a very great potential, he also has a dojutsu, so I will offer to become a Konoha shinobi. He will refuse, we will extract the dojutsu, and if it turns out to be at the level of Sharingan or Byakugan, then we will transplant the menmi. He will be a better user than his sister, he replied. But how is that possible, Minato? She asked with incomprehension. Everything is for the good of the village, dear, we should not miss the opportunity to increase Konoha's combat potential. By the way, study more complex Fuinjutsu seals with Menma, it's time for him to do it. What about Naruto? The red-haired woman asked indignantly. She's not worthy of it, she's not even worthy of bearing my surname. Why waste time on her if she's been studying for too long? Minato said with contempt. When Menma grasps everything on the fly, Hokage said with pride. Kushina was slightly upset, but did not answer anything. The husband was right. She had already gotten used to it and was gradually moving away from her daughter, too, when Minato gave up on her a long time ago. Well, where is Menma? Dinner will get cold now. Minato decided to change the subject. Before Kushina had time to say something in response, the sound of the door opening was heard. 2 children entered the house. A red-haired boy with a hedgehog hairstyle, 13 years old, in a t-shirt as red as his hair and gray breeches. There was superiority in his blue eyes. The second child was a girl of about 12 years old, wheat-colored hair, braided in 2 ponytails, orange shorts just above the knees with white stripes, a white t-shirt and over it a light orange jacket with a lock that was unbuttoned, with a sign of a whirlpool on the shoulder, blue eyes, sadness was visible in them. She herself quietly went to the table, she also greeted everyone quietly, catching 2 contemptuous and 1 sympathetic look. Her brother loudly greeted everyone, sat down at the table with everyone and began to eat dinner. How are things at the academy, Menma? Addressed to the youngest child in the family, his father, wonderful. Today there were sparring sessions. I've done that Uchiha Sasuke again. And then throwing, I have a 9-10 hit, and my worthless sister has 3/10. With these words he showed her his tongue. Naruto, holding back tears, ran away, and Kushina shook her head ruefully. The next day morning, Naruto was lying in a hospital bed waiting for Obito. The pain and discomfort in the body was no longer felt. Previously, Naruto would have left the hospital a long time ago, but now circumstances did not allow. Not that he was a stranger here, just in some green boxers a size bigger with orange frogs, it would be very strange to walk the streets. His expectations stopped when a brunette entered the room with a package. Oh, good morning Naruto-kun. Have you woken up? Then get dressed and let's go to the Hokage. The clothes are in the bag here, the brunette said and put the bag on the bed. Thank you, Obito-san, the blonde man replied. Just Obito, I don't like formalities, corrected the brunette. Could you come out, I'll change? Naruto said a little uncertainly. Well, if you're shy, how to say, you're funny boxers, then I'll come out, Obito said, trying not to laugh. Naruto himself blushed with shame after quickly changing clothes. The blonde and the brunette left the hospital. Naruto's clothes were uncomplicated, an orange t-shirt with a red whirlpool sign on the back, gray breeches with a pair of pockets, standard shinobi shoes. Naruto noted to himself that such clothes are very comfortable and it's not so hot in them. As they headed towards the Hokage Tower, the residents cast interested glances at them. Many girls, looking at the blonde, noted how cute he was. But really, 2 strands of hair acted as small horns, which looked very cute and attractive, and the image was complemented by scar's mustaches, 3 on each cheek, special eyes that both frightened and attracted. Seeing this, Obito was slightly envious of him. What will happen when he gets older? The brunette grinned. Going to the residence, Naruto tried to get rid of these horns, but everything was to no avail. The brunette only laughed at these attempts. They reached the residence 20 minutes later. Naruto noticed that this Konoha is bigger and the buildings are not located like in his world. He was most surprised that the face of Uchiha Madara was depicted on Mount Hokage, then Hashirama Senju, Sarutobi Hiruzen and Minato Namikaze. The blonde immediately wondered about the Uchiha clan, and in response to this, he noticed shinobi from the Uchiha clan. They rarely met, but this already meant that they were all alive and Sasuke would not take revenge. Although Naruto no longer cares about Uchiha, he was disappointed in him even in that world. In the Hokage residence, as usual, it was calm, who goes back and forth with papers, who sits and waits for something. The brunette knocked on the door. "Come in," was heard. 2 people entered the Hokage's office, closed the door behind them. Namikaze Minato immediately looked at Naruto, or rather at his eyes. He was only interested in this so far, but he was not going to show his interest right away. He did not want to scare him off. Naruto rescheduled this meeting in a slightly unusual way. No, he didn't feel lousy because Minato, as if his father was from another world, but there is no here. He just didn't have a very pleasant impression about him. His gaze was directed not at studying the blonde himself, but at his eyes. Naruto was no longer so stupid and understood a lot, so he is interested in my dojutsu, but he probably doesn't know what it is. The blonde mentally made his assumption. "Hello Hokage-sama," greeted the ruler of the village. Naruto. "Hello, Naruto. Let's get right to the point. I have a lot of work to do. Tell me how you ended up near Konoha." Hokage immediately began the interrogation. "I don't remember. I just remember that I was running away from robbers and lost consciousness." The blonde man made up an excuse for a quick thought. Apparently Namikaze did not believe very much, but he did not go into details. "What's wrong with your eyes?" he asked the next question. "Damn, I'll have to say it the way it is. If they find out that I'm trying to lead them by the nose, I'm in trouble." "Well, as far as I know, it's like a Rinnegan dojutsu. In fact, I didn't use it. I only have theoretical knowledge." The interrogated replied, "Do you have shinobi skills?" I received the following question from the ruler. "Did they just fall behind my eyes? Some kind of nonsense. It's all too strange. Is something really planned?" Naruto thought worriedly. "My grandfather taught me a little standard shinobi jutsu and some others. Well, taijutsu still, and that's it." The blonde man lied again. "Then I suggest you become a Konoha shinobi. Do you agree?" "Very smart move, I'll have to agree." "Yes, but I want to join my classmates," the blonde asked. "This is not a problem. They will finish their studies in 6 months. Actually, you will study these 6 months with them." "Well, then we'll see," replied Hokage. "Where will I live? And I will need money for living." Naruto asked the questions that appeared. "There will be no problems with this. Here's the key." He put it on the table and the blonde took it. "Obito will take you to your place of residence." He nodded in agreement. "You will receive money as an orphan's allowance. You don't have relatives here." A negative coil of the head. "Well, here, and that's it. You can be free. I think you're hungry. Go have a snack. Here's your allowance for this month." Minato handed the money to Naruto, who took it and headed for the exit. "Don't worry, Obito will find you." "Goodbye Hokage-sama," Naruto replied and went in search of a place where he could have a snack. Well, in general, he went to Ichiraku Ramen. "Obito, you will follow him. report to me personally, try to find out about his eyes. You need to get as much information about them as possible, gave Namikaze's order. Hi, the black-haired man replied and left the office. Sensei, it looks like you've become obsessed with the idea of Konoha's military might. We should try not to frame this kid, he reminds me a little of me, the brunette sighed. While Obito was talking to Hokage, Naruto got out of the residence and walked along a vaguely familiar road. Walking, the blonde man looked with interest at all sorts of bars and establishments, but the feeling of hunger did not disappear and drove him on. From the Konoha that was in his world, this one was very different. Already on the way you can see the familiar outlines of the building in which Naruto loved to have lunch, and not only to have lunch. Entering Ichiraku Ramen, Naruto saw a girl who was cooking ramen. And before there was an old man Tuchi, and I wonder who she is? And where is the old man? A bunch of questions formed in the blonde top of his head, but he did not think about it. Hello, said the blonde when he entered the diner. The girl turned around and said, hi, cute. After these words Naruto was embarrassed, and she just giggled at his reaction. What kind of ramen do you want? I have 3 servings with pork, Naruto replied. Now, everything will be fine. Wait a bit. What's your name, pretty boy? The girl asked casually. The blonde changed his usual face color again. Naruto, what's your name? He asked. I am. Here's your order, Naruto-kun, and let's go to you. After all, our ages are not very different, she said with a smile. Thank you, Naruto replied and began to devour the ramen. 15 minutes later, all 3 portions of ramen were eaten. The blonde paid and left the diner. Come again, pretty boy, I am shouted after him. Absolutely, he shouted back, almost not embarrassed by the compliment. There was no lunch yet, so Naruto didn't know what to do with himself. He went to the side of the residence, hoping to meet Obito on the way. Unlucky, I didn't meet him, so out of desperation I decided to just walk around Konoha, because there was nothing to occupy myself with. Thoughts about training floated by, but Naruto could not do training yet. The habit of giving his best in the process of these very trainings could cause unnecessary problems, such as a cold from lying on the ground or injuries that would cause him to lie in the hospital for a while. Here in this world, Naruto has not yet tested how his miracle regeneration works. If in his world he naturally had a good regeneration, and even a healing Biju chakra to boot, then in this he was without Biju. The blonde knew that Biju reluctantly, but still take care of their carriers, because the carrier is alive, Biju is alive, and the process of reincarnation is not the most pleasant, so they treat them. Right now he only had the Biju chakra, but he didn't know how to use it. Passing by a restaurant with Dango, the blonde saw Obito there. Naruto immediately wanted to approach him, but stopped when he noticed that he was not alone, but with some girl. He recognized her as one of the hospital workers who was having a nice conversation, just the same with Obito. Seeing how much fun they had, Naruto decided not to spoil his, if I may say so to a friend, lunch with a girlfriend, and possibly a girl. He did not figure it out and was not going to. Wandering around Konoha, Naruto thought about what he would do in the near future, as he was told there were 4 months left before the genin exam. At the mention of the exam, memories from the past came flooding back to the blonde. The scroll he stole, the shadow cloning technique he learned from it, the traitor Mizuki, the wounded Iruka-sensei, the truth about the 9-tailed fox all remained in his memory, as well as the reason why he did not pass. Damn, if I get illusory clones this time, I'll fail again. No, it won't do, because like last time I might not be lucky, but what if I show them shadow clones? I think it will help. It will be necessary to try to create them, and in general to try to make a Rasengan. Such thoughts floated in the blonde crown. By the evening Naruto got tired of wandering and he sat down on a bench, leaning back. 15 minutes later, he saw Obito walking towards him. I'm sorry, things have come up, Obito said, smiling guiltily, but the blonde man didn't seem to hear what he said. Well, how was the date? Naruto asked with a malicious smile. Great. Stop, it wasn't a date, Obito waved in protest, a blush appeared on his face. Naruto burst into a cheerful laugh. We just had lunch together and there's nothing funny here, the brunette said slightly offended. I'm sorry, Obito, it's just that your reaction was very funny, Naruto said with a cheerful smile. And what's her name? Obito looked at him strangely at this question. Don't worry, I don't pretend to her, he reassured the brunette, and then added in a whisper, her name is Rin. She is my teammate with Kakashi, now she works at the hospital. She is a first-class Iranian, and she also cooks very tasty, Uchiha said dreamily. Naruto struck a chuckle, which did not escape the brunette. Well, what again? Obito asked, already boiling. No, it's all right. Oh, yes, here we are, said the brunette, when they stopped in front of a one-story house. The house was one story. It was a little different from all the buildings, not only with its one floor, since there were almost no one-story buildings in this Konoha, or rather they were not met by a blonde, but also by the way it was done. Naruto did not notice more than one nail or saw. Now Naruto realized that his eyes give a great advantage, because from such a distance at which he was from home it would be extremely difficult to notice this. He saw everything very accurately. Deciding to try out the eyes in action, Naruto directed a little chakra into them. Now he was able to notice the traces of chakra on the wood. He also noticed that Obito began to move a little slower, although he himself moved the same way as before. Deciding that there would be many more opportunities to use his dojutsu, he stopped feeding the chakra into his eyes. A barely perceptible feeling of discomfort in his eyes said that he needed to train more. This is where you're going to live, Obito said. Really? A nod from the brunette. Cool. The blonde man shouted cheerfully and went into the house. By the way, is this house made with the help of a Makuden? Naruto asked. Yes, and how did you guess? This is probably your dojutsu, right? Yes, I saw a trace of the chakra left by the technique, the blonde replied, continuing to inspect the house. I wonder what else his eyes can do. Rinnegan? I've never heard of this. I'll need to rummage in the library, maybe I'll find out something. The inspection of the house did not take much time. The house has a kitchen, a bathroom, a living room and a bedroom. The furniture had everything you needed, a table, chairs, a couple of cabinets, a couple of bedside tables, a double bed, a fully equipped kitchen. Yes, this house is a luxury, if you compare that I lived in my small dorm room. And do they give such houses to everyone, or am I special? We should ask Obito. Obito, do they give such houses to everyone? Naruto asked the question of interest. No, Naruto, Hokage is interested in you, that's why he gave you this house, Obito replied. And what could I have interested him in? He doesn't know the level of my strength, and I don't really know myself. If only the eyes. And what could I interest him in? After all, I'm not even a shinobi, the blonde man said with a sneer. Apparently he saw your potential. Obito did not finish the whole truth. Well, what should I tell him? Is he interested in your eyes? So it can scare you off. Obito, even though he was sometimes stupid, but still knew how to think ahead. Okay, I'll go. Till tomorrow. To the academy by 9, if anything, the documents have already been done for you, Obito said and left Naruto's house. To the academy, then? I'm just going to sit there again, he said into the void. Deciding to go to bed early, Naruto went to the shower. After the shower, he set the alarm for 8 o'clock and went into the arms of Morpheus. The alarm clock rang. Naruto, dissatisfied, muttering something to himself, turned it off and sleepily crawled out of bed, heading for the bathroom. The cool shower finally woke him up. After putting on the things that Obito gave him, Naruto moved towards the diner to chew ramen, because at home in the refrigerator a mouse hung itself. In the diner, Ayam again made Naruto a little embarrassed. When the blonde man had breakfast, he went to the academy. Arriving there, Naruto did not see many students, there were only those who ran into classes in a hurry. Now the blonde realized that he was late, and he didn't know where to go. His position was saved by the teacher who was walking. "Hello, you must be Naruto Uzumaki," an affirmative nod. "I'm Yumano Irika, your homeroom teacher, now let's go to class, I'll introduce you, and now call me Irika-sensei." "Hi," Naruto answered only, already following sensei. And Irika is a sensei, the same as in that world. When the teacher and the student approached the door leading to the classroom, cheerful shouts began to be heard from behind it. Naruto began to worry, and it was because of what? He simply did not know how to behave with his classmates, who had once been his friends. Although there was doubt about the fact that he would study with them, but the voice of Kiba, which he heard, refuted them. Seeing the lack of confidence in the eyes of the new student, Irika smiled gently and said, "Don't worry, everything will be fine, I'm sure you can handle it." Sensei encouraged his student. "Thank you." Naruto smiled a little weakly. "Try not to worry here, you can't give yourself away, otherwise I won't have any problems." When they both entered the classroom, there was silence and everyone ran to their places. The students greeted Sensei as he greeted them. "So, from this day on, a new student will study with you." A blonde man came out from behind the teacher. "Meet Naruto Uzumaki." Everyone immediately fixed their gaze on the blonde, who was slightly alien to such an extensive studying gaze. Even though he was the hero who saved Konoha from pain, but then everyone in Konoha knew him and everyone admired him. Then he was very unfamiliar with their views, because before there was only hatred and contempt in them, and after the attack everyone looked at him with admiration, gratitude, and some girls even tried to capture him in their nets. Classmates looked at him differently. Someone with interest, as a rival. Someone cast enviable and angry glances, and there was a reason for that, even if now the physical condition of the body was at an average mark, but the appearance touched, made it more beautiful and unusual. All the students were whispering about the new one. The phrases, "handsome," "Sasuke-kun is better anyway," and "Menma-kun is still better," "where is he from," "is he another Uzumaki, another show-off, what's with his eyes, and he's nothing," were heard, and many other things that the blonde could not hear. "Sit down in an empty seat," said Irika-sensei and went to his teacher's desk. There were only 2 empty seats, the first on the first desk, where the blonde really didn't want to go, for which there were 2 reasons. One of them was a constant look burning his back, well, the second was that it was impossible to sleep, but Naruto wasn't going to sleep here. He didn't want to create a bad impression of himself, and in general, after the war, he became more responsible and collected. The blonde boy took a desk in the last row, next to a blonde who reminded him of someone he knew. When Naruto sat down at his desk, the blonde turned to him. "Your mother, this is my copy of the seduction jutsu, only there is no mustache," he thought in extreme surprise, and almost shouted out his thought, but realized in time that he would have made an idiot of himself. POV. Naruto, today my day didn't really start with a pleasant awakening. In the morning, my beloved brother poured a bucket of cold water on me. "Good morning, little sister," he said to me, and such a nasty smile. I would have hit him, but I can't, I'm weak compared to him. He is constantly trained by his father. Of course he also trained me at first, but seeing that I was not doing well, he simply began to score on my training and to engage only with Menma. "Are you completely crazy?" I shouted back at him, and he began to give out his nasty smile even more, and I began to almost shake with barely restrained anger. It amuses him to take me out like this, and he knows perfectly well that nothing will happen to him for this. He gets away with everything in general. My father came running to my cry. Apparently my mother is still making breakfast. "Naruto, don't yell at the whole house, you'll wake Mito up. Why did you yell at all?" My father barked at me. "Come on down, breakfast is almost ready." "Ah, Menma, what are you doing here?" Well, naturally, as for Menma, he is so polite and warm, but as for me, so with all his coldness, well, what kind of father is he? I went into Naruko's room, and she was yelling something. my brother replied as if nothing had happened, "This will happen again and you will be punished." He said it all roughly to me. Well, again he got away with everything, and you see, my father did not notice that I was sitting all wet and covering myself with a blanket, which is also wet. The mood is already spoiled, breakfast is already going on as usual, which made me happy. After my brother put salt in my ramen 2 days ago, I eat with caution, you never know if he'll do something else. Mom cooks just fine, I also dream of learning how to cook like that, but so far everything is going badly. Only my mother supports me, but lately she has started to move away from me. I think it's all Menma's fault again. After breakfast, I headed to the academy. Yesterday I heard my father telling my mother about a certain boy that Obito-san brought. By the way, Obito and Rin are probably the only ones who communicate with me very well. There is also I often eat ramen at her diner. So from the story I realized that he is also Uzumaki and will study with us. Mom asked my father to invite him to dinner with us to chat. My father also kept saying that he had an unknown dojutsu. I wonder how. So I got to the academy. I always come alone, I just don't have any friends. They almost point a finger at me, saying that I am a disgrace to the Hokage family. These despising looks are everywhere. But why contempt? Because I don't live up to my father's expectations? So they themselves are far from shinobi, but they also say something. Menma does not leave me alone at the academy, then he will pour glue on the chair, because he knows that I am sitting in the same place, or he will tell some joke, from which everyone laughs later. He does a lot of other petty things. Classmates are constantly running after him. Not only of course he still has Uchiha Sasuke, who is still a pompous turkey. And I don't understand why everyone is running after them. And I don't need it, even if these fools are pining for them, it's not my problem. The bell has already rung, so you can wait for a new one. Here came Iruka-sensei, and behind him I noticed a blonde boy. He's probably a little shy, well, that's for now, and so from this day on, a new student will study with you. And now his name is, get acquainted, Naruto Uzumaki. He's cute. For me his appearance is more pleasant than these Sasuke and Menma. Symmetrical mustache on both cheeks, apparently it's been with him since birth, and these strands of hair, which are something like horns, I haven't seen this yet. The skin is slightly tanned, it's not surprising that some have already set their eyes on him. His eyes, is this the dojutsu that father was talking about? It's nothing special to me. Sit down in an empty seat. He began to look around in search of an empty seat. And then he came to me and sat down at the desk next to me. I think that after my brother shames me, he will not sit here. Hi, I'm Naruto Uzumaki, and what's your name? With a smile, he whispers to me. And why did he say his name? Everyone in the class already knows him, if only for decency. Hi, and I'm Uzumaki Naruto. I also answered with a smile. And I even liked him. I hope Menma won't spoil anything, although I doubt even. They say the first impression is deceptive. I hope it's not. Damn, I don't even know him, but I already want to make friends with him. Lessons were held quietly without incident. The last lesson is left. For all the time, Naruto and I did not leave the classroom. Naruto at recess just looked out the window and was silent. He looked thoughtful. It's even a shame that he doesn't pay attention to me, because we're sitting at the same desk after all. Oh no, here's Menma coming here with her friends. Naruto noticed them too and was looking at them now, looking friendly and calm. Hey, Naruto Uzumaki, I am Namake's Menma and you will now obey me. My father allowed you to stay in Konoha, so you owe us. There is even more arrogance, pride and contempt in my brother now. He's looking down on him now. Naruto now looks somehow cold. There is no smile anymore, just like that in a moment to change in the face. If I owe someone, it's Obito, and I'll never owe you anything. Know your place, Hokage-san, Naruto said coldly. Just like that? Hokage's son? And he's not afraid. If you take it like that, Then Menma has never lost to anyone in sparring, not once. Menma seemed offended by these words, he even blushed with anger. You will answer for your words in sparring, he threw angrily and left with his gang. And tell me about Menma, the blonde asked the girl, and there's nothing to tell. He's my brother, which we still need to look for. You saw his character yourself, his father trains him all the time, so he's the coolest here, she said a little sadly. Did you say that he trains him? Does he train you? No, due to the fact that training is difficult for me, he scored on me. Everyone despises me because I did not live up to my father's hopes. Naruto replied in a voice full of sadness, sorry, this topic is unpleasant for you, probably. The blonde smiled guiltily, nothing, I'm used to it. Looking at the blonde's smile, she involuntarily smiled back. Shall we go for a walk after the academy? Naruto suggested. With pleasure, Naruto replied. Naruto was almost glowing with joy. Previously, peers rarely communicated with her, and she was not invited to take a walk with them. Someone despised her himself, someone was afraid that they would also be despised, someone's parents forbade communicating with her. Despite the bad start to the day, Naruto was in quite a good mood now. Menma's morning prank, it turns out, did not spoil this day so much. After the lessons, Naruto and Naruto left the academy together, under the gaze of the academy's students. Many people watched the couple coming out with gazes, which made Naruto a little annoyed, and I wanted to say, what are you staring at, but something stopped him. When they had already left the gate leading to the academy, a blonde with shoulder-length hair ran up to them. If Naruto's hair was a rich wheat shade, then hers was slightly paler. Naruto's gaze fell on her breasts, which were already a decent size, although at her age not many can boast of it. He quickly took the look from the girl's chest away from Sin, because the fantasy, which was a little perverted, by a perverted hermit, began to build pictures in his head, not at all for children's eyes, but very, very pleasant to watch. Hi Naruto-kun, I'm Senju Akemi, glad to meet you, the blonde said in a pleasant voice. Naruto only tensed imperceptibly. Hi, I'm glad too, the blonde smiled. Akemi shifted her gaze to Naruto, who was standing next to Naruto, and hello to you, Naruto, she said with a bit of contempt, sticking out her not small breasts, which were hidden only by a t-shirt and a bra. On her feet she had gray breeches that fit her legs, but did not fit them. Naruto's gaze went back to his chest, she just grinned contentedly. To the blonde, this girl slightly reminded someone. Senju. Senju. Is this really Tsunade's daughter? Although she looks a little like her, I didn't see her when she was my age. Was the perverted Sanin able to conquer her heart? No, I don't see anything similar to him, then it's definitely not him. By the way, what's wrong with him here? I should have taken the draft contract from him, if mine hasn't disappeared. And her breasts will definitely be like Tsunade's, the blonde thought. Naruto looked enviously at Akemi. She was upset by the fact that Senju was trying to seduce Naruto, which she was gradually getting. Hi, Naruto muttered, slightly upset, and there was something to be upset about. She didn't really like Akemi. She, as well as Menma, bullied her. If Akemi made completely harmless jokes, then her brother gave his all. The blonde, who had long since torn his eyes away from the contemplation of female attractions, was trying to come up with at least something to defuse the situation slightly. He had already noticed the tension between the two blondes. Can we go for a walk together? The blonde blurted out the first thought that came across. Another time, I need to go. While Naruto-kun, said Akemi, and smiling a strange smile, quickly headed in a direction known only to her. There was silence, broken by a blonde. Where are we going? She asked the thoughtful blonde. Let's go have lunch, and then we'll decide where to go next, the blonde man replied. I agree, she replied, because the time was just right for a snack. For the first few minutes, the guy and the girl moved in silence. Everyone did not know where to start a conversation, but after 5 minutes, the blonde was animatedly telling Naruto something about Konoha, and about any other nonsense. the blonde only nodded and sometimes inserted his words into the conversation. Naruto occasionally asked questions about Naruto, namely where he came from, who his parents were. Where he came from, Naruto replied that he lived in the forest in a place with a man who replaced his parents. When asked about his parents, the blonde lowered his gaze, saying that he did not know them, although he knew them, but he lied. He just said that he was raised by an elderly shinobi who replaced his family. Naruto immediately realized that this conversation was not pleasant to him and turned the topic to a more pleasant one. During the conversation with the blonde, Naruto remembered the old days before the attack of Pain and the Fourth World War shinobi, when he and his friends also walked around Konoha and enthusiastically told something or someone told something. It was not important. At such moments, they were having fun, and they behaved carefree, but even this idyll came to an end then. First Akatsuki, hunting for Jinchuriki, then the attack of Pain, and then the war. There was no time for simple communication with friends at all. Constant training took away all the free time. Naruto mentally grinned. I hope there won't be a problem in the form of an Akatsuki. During the conversation they answered. They reached the Ichiraku ramen. Hi, I am. Please give me 4 portions of ramen. Naruto, the hostess of the eatery, greeted and made an order. Naruto was surprised. Does she like ramen too? And in such quantity? And how did she not get fat? The blonde wondered. Hi, Naruto, I'll do it now. Wow, I see you're not alone. Did you really find a guy for yourself? I am asked with a kind of cunning in her eyes, while smiling cheerfully. Naruto blushed and was now no worse than a ripe tomato. Naruto didn't stay away either, but he just had a blush. And no, he's not my boyfriend, we just met today, said the blonde, already with the usual shade of face. Yeah? I am narrowed her eyes. Then you lose a lot, she smiled. They will take such a guy from under your nose and that's it, and what's so special about it? Naruto asked. She certainly felt a certain peculiarity in him, but what she did not know. Naruto was just sitting next to me in a kind of stupor. Do they even care that I'm sitting here? Yes, I don't know myself, we don't know each other very well yet, but I won't refuse to get to know each other better. Cute? I am asked with a smile, while winking at the blonde, who was confused. Get to know each other better? And what does that mean? Okay, stop. Ero-sanin told me about it. It's because, he could not finish the thought, because another person came into the diner. Hi, Naruto. I see you. Naruto is also a ramen lover? Asked the brunette who entered, and? Yes, this is wonderful food. Hello Obito, the blonde replied. Why are you so thoughtful? Obito asked, who was surprised by the blonde man's appearance, since he had not seen him like this yet, during the time of watching him. Yes, so about his own. Naruto evaded the true answer. Obito, who also joined the conversation, but no longer about the blonde, but about what awaits them when they leave the walls of the academy and become genins. Obito said that at the genin exam, it will be necessary to demonstrate a couple of techniques, to be more precise, the henge, replacement and illusory clones. Naruto himself had no doubt that Naruto would become a genin. He fully counted on shadow clones. He had no problems with henge and replacement. If Naruto was a master of his craft in henge and even created a couple of his techniques on this basis, namely, seduction technique, harem. Well, he simply did not use a replacement, without knowing why. Perhaps the instinct of self-preservation was absent or there was no suitable situation. It's not worth talking about shadow clones. They were a frequently used technique, especially during the creation of different types of Rasengan. Naruto also realized that his clones would perform even what the original would never have done, that is, they were submissive, but also self-willed. The blonde surprised everyone with his stories about the life of shinobi. Obito had the impression that he was listening to a seasoned warrior, and not a student who, in fact, does not even really know how to fight. Naruto also listened to the blonde with fascination. Naruto tried not to blurt out something that he shouldn't know because of his age and position, but once he started a story about the life of a shinobi, he continued it, referring again to the fact that his adoptive father told him this. After all, he also replaced his family. Naruto came up with the story of this man who raised him almost immediately while he was in the hospital. He understood that everyone would be interested in his skills and where he got them from, so he had to compose a mini-tale about an elderly shinobi who decided to educate himself a student in his old age and pass on his knowledge to him. So far, this story has not aroused anyone's suspicions, which pleased the blonde, and no one was very interested in his life before he started living in Konoha. Naruto found it strange that he was accepted into Konoha without checking the loyalty of the village and all sorts of questions and documents, because he could have been a spy of any other village or he had a hidden grudge against Konoha. Later, when Obito, and the Hokage himself, tried to find out about his dojutsu as carefully as possible, he realized that they were interested in his eyes and their strength, perhaps even that they had already come up with plans for the use of eyes, or plans for Naruto himself. For Naruto, the feeling came again when he was needed only as a weapon, but here he was at least on a par with everyone, and not like before, in that Konoha that was left behind in a completely different world. The dinner was accompanied by Obito's funny stories about his tasks when they were still genins, about the fact that he always tried to be better than Kakashi, his teammate. He also said that he ran after Rin all the time, trying to please her and please her when she threw loving glances at Hatake. This all caused a feeling of déjà vu again. A similar situation was in their team when Naruto was running after Sakura, Sakura was running after Sasuke, and Sasuke was running after Itachi to take revenge. True, then Naruto scored on the pink-haired one and began to look closely at other girls, but he never found the object of size, because training with Jiraiya, then constant tasks, catch up with Akatsuki and Sasuke, then pain, war and, hello, new world. Everyone came out of the diner in a very good mood. Naruto was happy that she had a new friend who did not pay attention to the fact that she was a weak student. Naruto knew this, but he didn't see anything that could hinder friendship. Obito was just calm at heart. He had not communicated with someone for a long time just like that, and on duty, constant tasks or training left time only for sleep and food. But even in this period of time he came to Rin when she was on shift at the hospital. POV. Naruto, today was just a wonderful day for me. I didn't think that I would have my first friend in the person of an academy student like me. When we had lunch and ramen, I was surprised and glad that he also likes ramen. Obito joined us. He was also involved in the conversation and we had a lot of fun. Obito and Naruto were constantly telling me something. Well, here's my house, now the mood will begin to spoil. When I entered the kitchen, my mom and mom were sitting at the table. My father was probably still at work. I sat down at the table and mom asked, "Naruto, where have you been? And what happened? You're just glowing like a light bulb." They asked me with a smile. I was even surprised. Usually my mother rarely takes an interest in something, and even smiling, only this smile is kind of suspicious. Maybe Menma has already said something wrong. Yes, nothing special happened. I evaded the answer, but something tells me that my brother will now tell everything. Yes, she's lying, she was walking with the new guy, the little brother said, raising his voice a little. Damn, what's the big deal? And why didn't I say it myself as it is? Did you like him? And what is he like? Tell me more about him. There were questions from mom. I haven't received so much attention from her for a long time, and my brother is keeping quiet about something. Yes, he's a weakling, I'll do him, like everyone else, because I'm the son of Hokage. Menma shouted proudly. I think I was mistaken. He was just preparing his speech. I do not doubt Menma. The voice of my father was heard, who quietly entered the kitchen, but you should still train and train to always be strong and replace me as Hokage. At these words Menma stretched out on a chair and proudly replied, I will not let you down, father. Unlike Naruto, well, unlike me, but how? No one trains me anymore, unlike you. Well done. Ruffling the hair on Menma's head, Dad sat down at the table, naturally casting a contemptuous glance at me. It seems that even Mom is no longer eager to learn something from me. It seems to me that it's my father who influences my mother so much, and because of him she moves away from me. I'm sure that at the whim of my father, my mother stopped training me in Fuinjutsu. Sitting at the table, I began to feel like a stranger here, as if I was not welcome here, although that's the way it is. Maybe only Mom needs me, but she hides these feelings. But why? I don't understand. Is she afraid of her father? What then? It turns out that she lives here by force? Or maybe I've already invented everything. I want to take and leave here, but where? Who needs me? What will I do if I'm no shinobi? Most likely I will be given in marriage to strengthen the alliance between the villages, and I don't want to be some kind of commodity for them, but no one will ask me, as always. And, dear, did you invite Naruto-kun to our dinner? Would I like to talk to him? Kushina asked during the meal. No, it's not time yet. Let him get used to it first, and then it will be seen, Minato answered thoughtfully, once again plunging into his thoughts towards the evening of this day. In the Hokage's office. Minato, the situation with the cloud is shaky, said an old man with a bandaged hand. Do you have any suggestions? Hokage asked. Yes, they offer to conclude a peace treaty and a trade agreement between our countries, but they demand to make an exchange that you may not like a little, the old man replied, twirling his cane in front of him. Danzo, peace with Kumo is important to us now. The war will only weaken us and give us a chance for an attack from Suna. They are constantly fishing for something on our territory. So what's up with the exchange? What are their demands? Namikaze asked. They offer us 3 swords from the mist in exchange for 3 representatives of the Uzumaki clan. The problem is that we have only 4 of them, but you will not give your son or wife to them. Minato was lost in his thoughts. After a couple of minutes he replied, I will need to think. In any case, there are already 2 candidates. Did they set deadlines for the answer? Yes. They only gave us a couple of months, so make up your mind. I understand that the choice is difficult, but such an opportunity rarely comes. I'm more worried about how to explain their loss, and I wonder why they stopped hunting for Byakugan. Minato said. I'll think about it, but as for Byakugan, they probably realized that the Hyugas are too arrogant and decided to try their luck with Uzumaki. Danzo replied and left the office, because they both had a lot to think about. A new day for Naruto started as usual. First, a trip to the shower, then to the Ichiraka ramen, and then the academy, where, as he expected, they would not teach anything sensible, except how to throw pieces of iron and wave their fists. If someone did not have enough of the knowledge that they give at the academy, they already went to the library, where they could find a couple of scrolls with techniques and other junk, half of which had not been moved for decades. At the academy, Naruto was still bored, as he was then in that world, only here he did not allow himself to sleep in class, but sadly stared out the window, then at the blackboard, where it was written what the blonde already knew. Chatting in class also won't work. The teacher constantly scolds those who are trying to do it, so Naruto just sighed heavily and waited for the end of lessons. Naruto, sitting next to the blonde, found a quick solution to the problem out of boredom. She fell asleep with her hands under her head. Naruto sometimes cast envious glances at her, and not only him, most would also not refuse such a vacation. Sensei, apparently, was already used to the antics of this girl in class and did not pay attention, since it was useless. Iruka-sensei noticed that Naruto and Naruto were very similar, but the guy seemed more responsible to him, even though he only knew him for a couple of days. Akemi, sitting in the second row of the penultimate desk, often glanced at Naruto. She liked this guy as soon as he appeared in their class. She was surprised by the slightly unusual appearance of the boy. In him, she did not see the pride and pomposity that was pouring over the edges in Menma, and was also present in Sasuke, but to a lesser extent. If Menma bullied everyone, or rather those who did not obey him and tried to show off their strength, then Sasuke only showed off his abilities, but in battles with Namikaze Jr., he lost. Senju was a little upset and puzzled by the fact that Naruto was communicating with Naruto. And what did he see in her? She asked herself a question. Although she admitted that Naruto was beautiful, but thanks to Menma, her reputation was completely ruined and it would take a lot of effort to restore it. Akemi wanted to get to know him better, but yesterday she was busy, and today she already decided that nothing would hurt her. Naruto came out from behind the gates of the academy and headed, as usual, to the Ichiraku ramen in order to satisfy his hunger. The benefit of the money that the Hokage gave him would be enough in full for another month. The guy was puzzled by the fact that he was not told anything about receiving benefits, since he does not have a guardian or parents. The blonde decided to devote today to training, because he had not tested any of his skills yet, and he needed to know his strength level. There is only nothing left before the Genin exam. Especially Naruto couldn't wait to study those scrolls that Kurama had left in his subconscious. Naruto didn't really like to read, but for the sake of new techniques, he is ready to do it as much as necessary. A mentally drawn-up training plan during a lesson at the academy was ready for execution upon arrival at the destination, but everything does not always go as planned, and this time it is no exception. Akemi ran up to Naruto, who managed to move a dozen meters away from the gate. "Hi, Naruto-kun," the blonde said cheerfully. "Ah, hi Akemi," the blonde man answered her in the same tone, hiding some frustration. "It seems my training has failed, but I can't refuse. It's not pretty how it will turn out." "Where are you going, Naruto-kun?" she asked, in Ichiraku, but he didn't finish. Akemi interrupted him. "Great, I'll go with you, I'm terribly hungry," she exclaimed, and pushing the blonde, who was a little unhappy with being interrupted, moved in the direction of the eatery. Naruto had no choice but to catch up with her and go there together. "By the way, tell me about yourself?" The blonde asked the question. "Before coming to Konoha, I lived in a small village with my foster father, and then I don't know how I ended up near the village gate, where Obito found me and took me to the hospital. There's nothing to tell, I didn't know my parents," Naruto answered her, "and there's really nothing." "Do you know any techniques?" Another question from the blonde lady. "So, and what should I answer her?" "Okay, I'll tell you about clones and Rasengan." "Damn, and I don't know more." "Well, I know how to create shadow clones and Rasengan," the blonde man answered her in an ordinary tone. "And Rasengan, what is it?" "Strong technique?" Akemi asked. "Maybe you'll find out later," he answered vaguely, "but tell me about yourself." Now it's the blonde's turn to ask. "I am the daughter of the legendary Tsunade Senju, one of Konoha's Sanins," she answered, not without pride, then continued in a slightly sad tone. "I didn't know my father. Mom said that he died before I was born. Now my mother has an addiction to alcohol and gambling, in which she is unlucky. She does not devote much time to me, mostly only in training, and so she works in the hospital. So I was right, she's Tsunade's daughter. You probably know medical techniques?" It sounded more like a statement than a question. "That's right, and I own a little bit of Makutan," she answered proudly. "I didn't think that there were still representatives of this rarest genome," Naruto said in surprise. "Huh," she chuckled. During this conversation, they reached the diner. Naruto ordered, as usual, 3 servings, Akemi only 1, referring to the fact that this is not very nutritious, although she did not say it out loud. While eating ramen, they sometimes exchanged a couple of words. After lunch, Naruto offered to visit the park and the blonde agreed to offer to take a walk in the park. This idea came somehow spontaneously. Naruto didn't know much how to spend time with girls, except for what Jiraiya told him. Well, what he said to him made him blush to the tips of his ears. The park met them with its silence. Neat trees under which there were benches cast a shadow under them. A small pond that was located in the park kept its crystal clear water calm. As soon as they sat down on a bench, on which the shadow of a tree fell, another blonde came up to them. Her hair was tied in a single ponytail and her bangs fell over her eye. "Hi, Naruto, Akemi," the blonde greeted the couple. "And hello to you, Ino." Akemi answered her, and then added a little dissatisfied, and I had to introduce myself, Naruto-kun doesn't know you, oh. I'm Yamanaka Ino, nice to meet you, she said, smiling guiltily, you already know me, so I'm glad to meet you, the blonde pulled a smile. And in my world, she constantly laughed at me, and here she even smiles, Naruto thought gloomily, what are you doing here? Akemi asked, who didn't quite like her friend's presence. Yes, Mom demanded that I plant flowers in the park, can you help? Ino asked, making a cute face, that's another thing, Akemi muttered and turned her head away from her. Ino immediately hung her head and was about to leave as it sounded, I can help, the blonde man said, and Yamanaka immediately gestured for him to follow her. Akemi remained indignantly sitting on the bench. Naruto and Ino approached the flower beds, near which flowers were lying in bags. There were a lot of flowers, but it won't be difficult to plant them together within a couple of hours. Naruto sighed heavily, he had never done this, but what's there, he doesn't even understand what flowers are where. Ino was just about to start, when she saw Uzumaki's confusion. Realizing what was what, she began to explain what and how to do immediately by showing an example. The guy remembered everything, surprisingly for himself, easily, which made Ino very happy. As expected, they finished 2 hours later. Ino was full of gratitude, and Uzumaki himself only sighed with relief and retreated, saying goodbye to her. He did not want to do floriculture anymore. Now Naruto went in search of the landfill. He remembered their approximate location, but he could not know for sure, because this Konoha was different from the one he was used to. To the joy and disappointment of the blonde, he found the polygons, but all that he saw were occupied, both genins of the last issue, who had not yet become chunins, and jonins, trained on them, although the latter were extremely rare. After passing about 24 polygons, he found a free one. The polygon was no different from the others, the condition of the polygon was good. Naruto decided to start his training with physical exercises. Back in the last world, the blonde, after traveling with a pervert Sannin, began to engage in physical development of the body. Jiraiya himself pushed him to do this. He said that when Naruto went to study the hermit regime, he would need good physical training, and the girls would pay attention to him. Uzumaki started his training with a run, deciding to run without using the chakra. The run took about 10 minutes, after which Naruto collapsed on the grass and caught his breath. For starters, I think it will do, it's time to try to create clones. Finally calming his breathing, Naruto stood up and folded a single cross-shaped seal. Shadow cloning, he pronounced the name of the technique, after which 20 clones appeared next to him. Smiling at his success, Naruto wanted to try to create a Rasengan, but one of the clones said that it was necessary to have proper control over the chakra in order to keep the technique. From this the smile slipped and the blonde decided to listen to his clone. Naruto remembered how to hone control. Even then, on a mission in the land of waves, Kakashi-sensei taught him this, well, not only him, but also the others. Of course, walking along the trunk of a tree does not raise the control to a good level, but that's something. All the clones together took over one tree and got down to business. The first clone rose only a couple of steps and immediately fell to the 5th point, while releasing an obscene construction. Getting up, he rubbed the bruised place and tried again. The second clone immediately broke the tree, which collapsed, crushed 4 clones who successfully tried to climb the trunk. Waving his hand at them, the clone wandered to a nearby unoccupied tree and began to climb it. At the 5th step along the trunk, he fell and scattered from hitting the ground. The rest of the clones received his knowledge and have already started trying to climb with great success. Naruto, meanwhile, did not drive the fool, but did push-ups, pull-ups on a tree branch, and pump the press. He tried to do all this without using the chakra, so the body will become much stronger in a shorter time, and he will always be able to use the chakra to strengthen the muscles. Only sometimes he winced at the scattering clones, which, along with knowledge, conveyed fatigue. 4 hours later, each of the 10 remaining clones was able to climb a tree. The joyful clones reported their success to their master, who was satisfied. He was in no hurry to dispel these 10 clones, because their fatigue would be transmitted to the original, so Naruto sent them in search of a reservoir, for the next workout, for walking with the help of the chakra on the water. A friendly crowd of clones decided to go to landfill number 13, where there was a reservoir in that world. Naruto himself, who had already done a lot of physical training, decided to hone throwing iron, but he did not have any. He had to go to empty landfills in search of this good. After half an hour of wandering, the blonde was left empty-handed. All the kunai and shurikens that he found were too bent or broken. In general, they could not be restored. It was easier to buy new ones. Naruto, though, had enough money, but if you buy throwing weapons, there will be very little left, and he planned to buy clothes to replace the ones he had. Uzumaki didn't have the strength to continue training, so he went after the clones. The collective decision of the clones to go to the 13th training ground turned out to be correct. A narrow and not deep river, just the same suited for training. Standing at a distance of about 2 meters from each other, the clones began to try to walk on the water. The first step for each was unsuccessful. They fell into the water knee-deep. Some cursed and started new attempts, the rest just silently continued their work. Each clone turned out differently, but the chakra was not infinite and 2 of them had already gone into oblivion. Naruto, who was walking in the direction in which the clones had gone, suddenly had memories and, accordingly, fatigue, from which he swayed. For this reason, he decided to speed up to prevent the clones from dissipating, otherwise he would lose consciousness, and then anything could happen. Upon arrival at the landfill, near which the river flowed, Uzumaki was surprised 3 of his clones stood quietly almost in the middle of the river and laughed at the attempts of the others. The same did not stop trying to catch up with their counterparts, but the attempts were not very successful. Here's another clone evaporated and Naruto fell on the 5th point. The rest of the clones looked at him and understood what was going on. They went ashore to the original and helped him up. When Naruto was more or less able to move away from fatigue, he gave the command to the clones to just wait and do nothing until he himself dispels them. The clones answered, "Hi," with one voice and sat down in a circle. Why they sat down like that remained a mystery. Naruto was walking towards the diner with his tired gaze fixed on the ground. He did not want to think about something at all. The fatigue that had piled up after training made itself felt, so the trip to the clothing store was postponed for tomorrow. Naruto ordered only 1 portion at Ichiraku, which surprised and worried Iam, since he always took at least 3. The girl wanted to find out the reason, but seeing how the blonde looks tired, she decided not to bother him. Naruto tried to eat the ramen as quickly as possible, but it took a little longer than usual. He already felt that the clones would soon dissipate. When he got home, Naruto went to the shower. He didn't stay there for a long time and after 10 minutes he was standing on the opposite side of the bed. Already lying on the bed, he folded the seal and scattered the clones, after which he instantly went to the kingdom of Morpheus. During his training, Naruto did not even notice that he was being watched by 1 pair of eyes as black as night. The follower was already moving towards the Hokage residence in order to submit a report. "Hokage-sama, can I?" the brunette asked, entering the office. "Yes." "Obito, how many times do I have to tell you, address me sensei or by name?" the blonde man said with a tired sigh. "Okay, sensei, I'm with a report about Naruto Uzumaki, more precisely, about his training at one of the training grounds." Hokage perked up a little. "Well, finally, I can't wait to find out the power of his eyes." In training, he created shadow clones in the amount of 20 pieces. The clones were full-fledged and carried out his orders while they were training chakra control. The original was engaged in physical training. "Like everything else is not so important," Obito replied. Hokage was slightly upset. "Well done, you can continue the surveillance and also call Kakashi to me, or better yet, drag him. I'll give him a mission. Let him relax a little, otherwise he will have nothing left in his head except the contents of these porn books." "Hi," replied Uchiha and left the office. 2 months have passed since the first training session. During this time, Naruto has trained his body a little in terms of both physical and spiritual. Every day he tried to increase the load on his body, even if not much. Of course, he may never reach Gai-sensei, in terms of both taijutsu and physical strength. The spiritual plan meant the development of the center of the chakra and chakra canals. While the original was engaged in meditation and physical exercises, his clones honed chakra control and trained to create Rasengan. Naruto spent 2 weeks restoring the skill of using Rasengan. The guy did not dare to pour the elemental chakra into him, for several reasons. First, he knew that the element of wind was dangerous and could harm him. Second, he had no control over any of the elements. Since there is no way to create a Rasen Shuriken, it was decided to learn how to create a Rasengan with one hand. After 6 weeks, Naruto could do it. But there was a small problem: the Rasengan lasted only 5 seconds, after which it dissipated. Of course, it was not without training dojutsu and his techniques. The first Rinnegan technique that Uzumaki started was the Way of Hungry Spirits, or Gakido. The essence of this technique was to create a transparent dome that absorbs any kind of ninjutsu. The disadvantage of this technique is that it takes some time to recharge. Naruto learned this way in a month, but he could not test it in action. Today, the blonde did not go to train, because Naruto said that her mother wants to meet him, because he and she are from the same clan, and for this reason invited him to dinner with them. It was unexpected for Uzumaki, but he was not afraid of the meeting. He got used to the idea that he was alone in this world and he had no one but Naruto and Akemi, possibly Ayame. These are the people with whom Naruto communicated. The realization that he would meet a woman who was his mother in his native world caused an exciting feeling. At first, Naruto refused to go get acquainted with her, but after Naruto said that it was better not to anger her mother, otherwise she would find out what a bloody habanero meant, Naruto suddenly remembered his mother's character, and if she is here with the same character, then she will achieve her goal. On the way to the Hokage's house, Naruto bought a small bouquet of flowers as a gift in honor of acquaintance. Approaching the Hokage's house, the blonde stopped at the door. Shifting from one foot to the other, the young Uzumaki did not dare to knock, not that it would be scary, just out of excitement. He was lucky. Kushina felt someone else's chakra behind the door and hurried to open the door. Everything was ready for the meeting and almost everyone was already at the table, with the exception of Menma, who stayed the night with his friend. In fact, he just didn't want to cross paths with Uzumaki. When the Hokage's wife opened the door, an almost exact copy of her husband appeared in front of her, except for the eyes, stripes on the cheeks and horns. The sight of the blonde touched her. There are probably a lot of girls looking at him, the woman flashed through her head. When the door opened, Naruto shuddered with surprise. When looking at the red-haired one, the word "mom" flashed through the blonde's mind, but when he saw the answering look, in which curiosity and kindness were read, this obsession disappeared and the thought that it was mom disappeared. After all, when she met her mother in the subconscious, she looked at him in a completely different way. These feelings could not be conveyed. "Hello, Kushina-san. I'm Naruto Uzumaki." Observing etiquette, Naruto greeted Hokage's wife. "This is for you." He handed her a bouquet of flowers. "Hello, Naruto, come in." Completely ignoring the rules of etiquette, she greeted in response. She addressed him as a friend she had known for a long time, which even confused the blonde and put him into a stupor, but he quickly came to his senses and took an uncertain step into someone else's house. "Don't worry, come on in," Kushina said with a soft smile. It gave some confidence and the next steps were easier. Naruto followed Kushina. Inspecting the house, there was comfort, cleanliness and order around, which is not surprising. At the entrance to the kitchen, 3 pairs of eyes stared at him from people sitting at a large table. There were cheers immediately. Minato sat with his back to the wall, Naruto with his back to the kitchen furniture, Kushina sat next to Naruto, and Naruto was seated opposite her, next to a little girl who silently looked at a stranger to her. She had shoulder-length red hair, purple eyes like her mother's, and she looked like she could have been about a year old, maybe a little more. Mom, who is this?" The little girl asked, pointing with her finger at the newcomer. Mito, meet Naruto, said Kushina, admiring her child. Dad. Mito exclaimed, looking at Naruto. He himself did not understand who the girl was addressing, so he decided to keep silent and only looked at the child with a slight smile. What, daughter? Namikaze asked gently. No. Mito turned her head in different directions. Dad. She said and pulled her hands to Naruto, urging him to take her in his arms. Dad. The girl exclaimed again. Everyone who was in the room fell into a stupor when they realized that Mito called Naruto daddy. And Uzumaki's own eyes have become the size of a saucer. Well, no fucking way. What does all this mean? Naruto flashed through his thoughts, and not only him. What's that supposed to mean? Hokage was angry, although outwardly he remained calm. Dad. The girl made pleading eyes, forcing everyone to smile and almost melt with emotion. Naruto, take her in your arms, Kushina said, continuing to smile. Yes, he himself could not resist this baby, took her in his arms and sat her on his lap. The table was not high, so the girl's head was above it. Mito settled comfortably on the blonde's lap, put her pens on the table and said loudly, eat. Kushina reacted quickly and put porridge in her plate. The girl started eating and the others preferred to keep up with her. Naruto, where are you from? And how did you end up here? Kushina asked after 2 minutes of silence. I lived with my foster father in a small village. He himself was already old, but he continued to be a shinobi. He taught me this art. At one of the training sessions, I was exhausted and lost consciousness, and woke up here in the hospital. Naruto told his mini bike. Did you know your parents? The red-haired woman asked again. This question sounded unexpected to him. No, he said matter-of-factly. This tone surprised those present, but they did not attach any importance to it, referring to the fact that the guy himself had already got used to it. The conversation at the table continued for another half hour, after which Naruto suddenly began to feel dizzy, and his eyes began to get cloudy. He pressed the snoring child closer to him, so that she would not suffer in case of anything. My eyes were covered with fog and I couldn't see anything. I couldn't even utter a word. With a slight thud, Naruto's head hit the table and he lost consciousness. Almost the same thing happened to the others. The exception was Minato, who watched this picture with some pleasure. After the last victim of the sleeping pill was struck, Namikaze, turning his head to the window, nodded. 6 shinobi in faceless masks instantly appeared in the kitchen. Wearing special chakra-suppressing bracelets for 3 Uzumaki, the faceless ones put masks without eye slits on each of them. 3 fighters threw the unconscious bodies on their shoulders, and the 4th took the girl in his arms, and followed the others. Namikaze Minato watched this with a calm look, although there was a certain feeling of emptiness in him. 6 faceless shinobi ran out of the village and headed to the northeast, where a meeting place should take place on the border. Along the way, they were joined by 4 more Anbu Konoha fighters. During the movement, no one said a word about the case. The faceless ones only exchanged words about the halt or the way of movement. The victims were unconscious. 2 days later, the Anbu reached a wide clearing where tents were set up, and futons lay next to them. As soon as the route Anbu approached the clearing, 10 shinobi with cloud protectors came out of the tents. Greetings, the fighter, apparently the captain of this group, said without emotion, we brought Uzumaki, everything is as per the contract, now you're part of the deal. Half a month ago, there were 2 people standing in the same clearing, behind each of them were 4 fighters in special uniforms. Glad to meet you, Reikage Dano, the blonde man said. Let's keep the greetings and formalities to ourselves. Hokage Dano, discuss the peace treaty. You are familiar with the terms. We demand 3 Uzumaki in exchange for 3 mist swords, said Reikage. Yes, I am completely satisfied with this deal, but there are no pure-blooded Uzumaki except my wife in Konoha, Namikaze said. That's why we are here. I want to change the terms of the deal. For Uzumaki in exchange for 3 mist swords and financial means, Reikage offered new conditions. Minato frowned. Such conditions will be fair, but at the same time Konoha may lose the Masters of Seals. Again, if you refuse, a war may break out, which is not necessary for both sides. Okay, I accept the new conditions. Hokage gave his consent, to which Reikage grinned rather. I think now we can discuss the terms of peace between our countries. A stormy dispute began between the two Kages, each trying to snatch more opportunities from the contract. In the end, the two rulers found a compromise and both satisfied and tired began to disperse. Minato, how do you trade your wife for a sword so easily? Reikage, who was already leaving, asked. Minato stopped and answered. I am first of all a Hokage, and then a family man, he replied. That's why I'm not starting a family. Thought, hey, present time, here are the swords and here is the designated amount of money. A shinobi with a cloud protector handed 4 large bundles to the faceless one. 3 free ANBU took the bundles and checked the contents. It's all right, you can take the Uzumaki, the fighter of the leaf answered just as emotionlessly. ANBU clouds nodded. The fighters holding Uzumaki handed them over to the cloud shinobi. No one asked unnecessary questions about the appearance, the Leaguers only had the task of bringing them. Having collected all their belongings, the Kyumo shinobi went home. The way was not close, about 3 days, and with the cargo it will be a little longer. Having stopped for the night, the Uzumaki were put in a separate tent and assigned 1 shinobi to guard. When all but 2 of the guards were already asleep, the one who was guarding the tent went into it. After examining the prisoners, he approached the red-haired woman and knelt beside her. Lowering one hand on her leg just below the knee, he led her up, gradually lifting the dress. When there was very little left to the secret place, the guard felt a strong pain in his shoulder, which was caused by the kunai in this very shoulder. What are you doing? The one who got the kunai hissed angrily, what are you doing? The second one said irritably, and angrily added with a note of fear, quite already. The Reikage will tear our heads off for this. He won't know, the would-be rapist replied, bandaging his shoulder. It doesn't matter, they put me so that I would monitor their safety, so if it happens again, they will quarter you for sure, said Shinobi and left the tent. The wounded man looked at Kushina with an unsatisfied and lustful look, but still left the tent, fearing for his life. We'll play again, he said when he had already left the tent. 3 days later, the squad returned home to the village of Hidden Cloud. The village met them with mountainous terrain and clouds, thanks to which it got its name. The daily hustle and bustle did not stop, everyone was in a hurry somewhere, some to work, some to the market. Everyone looked with some apprehension and curiosity at the 4 shinobi who were carrying 2 teenagers, a woman aged 28 to 30 years, and a small child wrapped in a blanket. Some of the most curious even tried to find out who it was, but the shinobi replied that they had no right to disclose this information. The residence of the Reikage was in the form of a blue balloon, with a garden at the top. After knocking on the door, they were allowed to enter. There was no one in the office except Reikage. Reikage-sama, the task is completed, for Uzumaki have been delivered. After these words, he pointed to the shinobi holding the very people whose clan were Masters of Seals. Call Ryanin here, let him bring them to their senses, ordered Reikage. One of the free shinobi went to the hospital like a bullet. 5 minutes later, the doctor appeared in the doorway. Bring them to their senses and you can be free. The head of the village pointed to the 4 unconscious bodies. Put them on the sofa, Ryanin said, and they followed his words and laid all 4 of them down. 20 minutes later, all 3 were brought to consciousness. The last one woke up Kushina. She immediately wanted to reach out to Mito, but could not. Weakness in the body made itself felt, and the chakra-suppressing bracelets prevented her from doing so. Ruri, stay, the rest are free. Everyone left the office, only Uzumaki, Reikage and a 30-year-old man with dark green hair, dressed in standard Jonin clothes, remained in it. I see you have already come to your senses, Reikage spoke in an ordinary tone. Where are we and who are you? The red-haired woman asked. Naruto and Naruto preferred to just keep quiet. Naruto because she didn't know what to do, and Naruto because he was afraid to blurt out something superfluous because he found out who was in front of him. Did the cloud kidnap us? No, it can't be. I am the fourth Raikage Hei, and you are now in the village of the Hidden Cloud and are full-fledged residents. Now it's your turn to introduce yourself, Raikage replied and watched the shocked faces of three people with a grin. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, this is Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto nodded towards Naruto. Uzumaki Kushina, a nod towards the red-haired one. Uzumaki Mito, a nod to the little girl. What's going on? Kushina flared up and tried to get up, but weakness in her body did not allow her to do it. I'll explain everything now. Konoha sold you in exchange for 3 mist swords and a tidy sum of money. These were the terms of a peace treaty between our countries, Hei replied. These words shocked everyone here with the exception of Mito, Ruri and Ei, although the latter was quite surprised by Namake's Minato's decision. And why us? Naruto asked already, realizing her position. We need seal masters to raise our military might. What makes you think that we will help you? Kushina asked, dissatisfied with this state of affairs. Well, let's say that Konoha provoked and helped destroy Uzushiogakure. These words shocked Kushina. Naruto was also in shock, only Naruto did not understand what was happening, but remained silent. I'll ask about Uzushiogakure later, she thought. I agree to help you, the bloody habanero sadly replied. The others supported her with a nod. Now it's hard for her. It turns out that Konoha used her and then just exchanged her as an unnecessary thing. Konoha will remember me again, Kushina thought gloomily. I am glad that you agree, Raikage said, pleased with this outcome of events. I will tell you all the details about the destruction of Uzushio later. Now Ruri will take you to your new home. The money is already there too, a month for you to develop in the village and fully consider this situation. Dismissed, ordered Hei. Ruri approached Uzumaki and took off their chakra-suppressing bracelets. Kushina immediately picked up Mito, who managed to fall asleep again. Of the three, only Naruto felt better than the others. Naruto swayed slightly, and Kushina found these steps difficult, so also the baby in her arms. Naruto came up to her and put his arm around her waist, while blushing a little. Kushina, realizing what he wanted to do, shifted the blanket with Mito comfortably into her left hand, and wrapped her right around the blonde's neck. Naruto was tall for his age, and Kushina was average, so the guy's head was just above the shoulder of the red-haired one. In this position, they followed Ruri, who slowly led them along, realizing that it was difficult for them after the effects of sleeping pills. You have interesting eyes, Naruto. I feel the power in them. You'll have to try, thought Raikage with a vulgar smile, after which he set to work, which did not want to decrease in any way. The house that was given to the representatives of the Uzumaki clan turned out to be large, and this somewhat puzzled Kushina. The Raikage offered us a more humane way to help him, but that would be so easy to give such a house. Very strange. The house itself was hidden in another rock, of which there were too many in Kumo. Only a small wall, on which there was a balcony and windows, said that there was a house there. The house has 2 bedrooms, a living room and a kitchen. All rooms were large in size. The bedrooms had 1 double bed, as well as wardrobes and bedside tables, everything you need in the kitchen, a large sofa, a couple of armchairs and a table in the living room, as well as decorative items. When the inspection of the house was over, everyone stopped in the living room. Wearily plopping down on the sofa, Naruto leaned his head back. So now this is my new home. It's strange, but I don't even miss Konoha. There is only resentment and anger at the Hokage. How can you exchange your own daughter and wife for some swords? It doesn't fit in my head in any way. Lost in thought, Naruto did not notice how Ruri left the house, and Kushina disappeared somewhere with Mito. Hearing sounds from the kitchen, he realized that she was probably cooking something. Feeling a slight feeling of heaviness on his shoulder, the blonde turned his head and saw Naruto, who just dropped her head on his shoulder. Slightly embarrassed, he wanted to move her out of harm's way, otherwise Kushina would think something, but realizing that she had fallen asleep, He put this thought aside and again threw back his head and closed his eyes, letting out a weak tired sigh. It's ready to eat, wash your hands and go to the table. A shout was heard from the kitchen, but there was no answer. Then Uzumaki went to the living room and saw an interesting picture. Naruto's head is on Naruto's shoulder, and his head is lowered on Naruto's head. Kushina smiled, but the smile was replaced by discontent. Approaching them, she hit Naruto on the head, causing him to jump up on the couch and grab the place of impact with his hand, hissing something strangled. After receiving a push from Naruto, Naruto also woke up, but she didn't get hit on the head. This situation caused discontent already with Naruto. I'm cooking the main thing for us there, and you're resting here, Uzumaki wailed, to which both blondes guiltily lowered their gaze. Okay, let's go already, we need to feed Mito, otherwise she's hungry, said Kushina and went to the kitchen. The others trailed after her. The meal was held in silence. Everyone was making sense of the current situation, what and how it would be now. POV, Kushina, Minato, you betrayed me, us, all of us. Naruto, Mito, me. I hate it. Why? Why did you do that? You loved me, I know for sure. And I also loved you more than life, so why? Why did you sell us out? Or was your love an illusion? Now I don't know what to think anymore, but I know that I don't love you. I can't love you after your act. Betrayal. Now I fully understand the meaning of the words, knife in the back. Maybe I wouldn't be sure that this is true, but your look, the last look. He was cold. I saw in him that you weren't sure about your choice yet, but you made it anyway. You betrayed us. I hate it. Now I'm in Kumo, and even if not even a day has passed, but I feel that at least I'm needed here, my talents are needed. But it doesn't matter that at least someone will be able to get the skills of the ancient art of Fuinjutsu, even if weak. After I found out that Konoha was involved in the destruction of Uzushio, that the village itself took part in the destruction of my homeland, it became disgusting to even think about her, about those who surrounded me all this time. Now I am sure that many people knew about it, knew and stubbornly kept silent. I always thought that Konoha was on our side, but Raikage's words made a crack in my vision of life. Maybe he's lying, and if not? In any case, he said he would tell you everything later, END. POV, Naruto, why did father betray us? No, after that I won't even call him father. A loving father wouldn't do that to his family. Even if he didn't care about me, but what about mom and Mito? Why did he do that? In the lessons at the academy, I remember Irika-sensei telling me that the stronger and more talented the shinobi, the more they appreciate him, that there were great shinobi in every village, but he also talked about ancient artifacts, such as the 7 Swords of Mist, that they are also appreciated, as the shinobi are appreciated. Therefore, many villages want to get them. It turns out Konoha exchanged us for these weapons, just because they are very cool swords. Now I understand, these 3 swords are like 3 talented and very strong shinobi, and there are 3 of us. Mito can't be counted, my level won't even pull Genin, and I don't know Naruto's strength. Of us, only mom can be called strong and talented, then Konoha only benefited from this exchange. I'm even glad that I ended up here, maybe I'll find real friends here and there will be no contempt from the outside. END, mom, tell me about Uzushio Gakura, Naruto asked. Alas, I don't know much about Uzumaki's homeland. I was sent to Konoha when I was a little girl. The Uzumaki clan was very strong and famous for its longevity and mastery of seals, and this village became famous. It was precisely because of the seals that they were respected, but at the same time they were afraid. Then, because of this, the village was destroyed along with the inhabitants, and those who escaped, scattered around the world, Kushina said. Why didn't you tell me about this before? I was looking for more information, but I couldn't find it, so I didn't tell you, and you didn't ask, the red-haired woman replied. I would like to visit the Whirlpool village, Naruto said. someday we will visit, and you, Naruto, don't you want to visit the village of our clan? Kushina asked the blonde man, who was slowly sipping tea and listening to the conversation. I wish I could, he said sadly. Kushina, seeing that Naruto was not in the mood for a conversation, decided not to ask him about anything else and continued to chat with Naruto on another topic. They sat talking until the evening, or rather only Naruto and Kushina talked. Naruto was thinking hard about something, looking at one point. Mito played with her mother's hair, then twisting them on her fingers, then pulling, because of which the red-haired woman's face twisted from fleeting flashes of pain, and Naruto only giggled at this, for which Kushina mentally promised her to remember everything. No one had the strength to do anything, everyone wanted to rest. Kushina still could not understand what kind of sleeping pills they were given, since after him such a rollback. Uzumaki understood medicine at the level of an average ironine. There was a lack of time to improve this skill. The others didn't bother with it. By a friendly decision, everyone gathered to go to bed, but faced a new problem, and this is that there are 2 beds, and there are 4 of them. After all, the Raikage did not calculate everything in advance and did not order the installation of another bed for Mito. So, Mito and I will take this room, and you will sleep in that one, Kushina ordered, looking at the blonde and the blonde. They wanted to go into the room, as they realized that there was 1 bed, and there were 2 of them, even if the bed was double, but still. And don't look at me like that, the bed is big, there's enough room for you, Kushina said, but Mom, Naruto was indignant, feeling her cheeks burn. Naruto was silent, waiting for them to finish the altercation. No, Mom, Uzumaki said, glaring at her daughter, but that didn't stop Naruto. What if he starts pestering me and groping me? And then, Naruto fell silent, realizing that she had said too much, and Naruto stood in a kind of shock. Am I a pervert in your opinion? He looked at Naruto with indignation and at the same time with a question. Kushina shifted her gaze to Naruto, causing him to flinch slightly. Okay, Kushina gave up, you will sleep with Mito, and I will go to bed with Naruto, Kushina said, but first the bathroom. She finished. Naruto just stretched out, and there was no one left in the living room. Does that mean no one will ask me? Naruto thought resignedly. After washing up, they went to bed. The last one turned out to be Naruto, and this did not surprise him in any way. He himself let everyone go ahead of himself, and there was a reason for that. Entering the room where Kushina was already lying, he stopped, shifting from one foot to the other. He did not dare to go to his place. Don't trample, go to bed, I don't bite, Uzumaki said in a sleepy voice. This had a sobering effect on Naruto and gave him confidence. After undressing, Naruto was left in only the boxers that Obito bought for him, but the drawings of daisies did not really like the blonde. It would be better to buy with frogs. Sighing, Naruto lay down under the blanket and almost instantly fell asleep. Konoha, Hokage-sama, the task is completed, the shinobi, whose face was hidden by a mask, said in an emotionless voice. All right, leave the money here, and deliver the swords to Danzo, Hokage ordered. High Point. One of the faceless fighters left a bundle on the Hokage's desk and followed the others out of the village head's office. Minato glanced at the bundle, then transferred it to a stack of papers. There was a lot of work, but there was no strength left. Having decided to give up everything, he wanted to go home, but realized that now it was empty, and began to sort out the papers further. Flashback. The day after Uzumaki disappeared. In the evening, the Hokage walked slowly down the street, heading home. It was already late at night, so there was no one from passers-by, only sometimes some drunkard met in an alley or on a bench. When he reached the house, he saw that the light was on in the kitchen. Menma must have returned, a thought flashed through Namikaze's mind. I'm home, Minato shouted slightly, but there was no warm greeting. Only Menma left the kitchen. Father, where are Mom, Mito, and Naruto? He asked, but there was no particular concern in his voice, and this slightly surprised Hokage. They were abducted yesterday when we were having dinner. They put sleeping pills in our food and I lost consciousness. And when I woke up, there was no one there. the blonde man lied. After all, Danzo is prudent. Any idea who did it? The son asked his father. No, but we are looking for the culprit. Minato was glad that the children, even gifted ones, did not always understand where the lie was and where the truth was. You know, father, I'm even glad about it. Now there will be no moralizing from my mother, and this worthless sister will also not be around. Well, I don't care about Mito, Namikaze Jr. said casually, as if it had always been so. Minato was somewhat shocked by Menma's words. His son did not love his mother, even if not his own. He probably found out that Kushina is not his own mother. So it's not for nothing that I left these documents in a prominent place, Namikaze Sr. concluded. Okay, let's go eat, otherwise I'm completely tired and I want to sleep. Having said this, he went to the kitchen. Menma followed him. In Dakime's POV, the blonde was lying on the bed and looking at the ceiling, the color of which resembled a clear sky. It's been almost a week, and Naruto hasn't been to the academy. Maybe something happened? Well, no. I was in the hospital, he wasn't there, that's for sure. So he's not sick, which is good. Even Obito doesn't know what's wrong with him. He also said that not only Naruto is not there, but also Naruto, and Kushina-san with Mito. This is very alarming. I've already been through Konoha several times with Obito, but I haven't learned anything. We didn't find anything at his house that would help us in our search. But then, when we asked Minato-san, he said that they had been kidnapped, and there were no search results. I was surprised that he was so calm about it. Did he really set it up himself? I hope they're all right. Naruto, I hope we'll meet again. A single tear appeared on her eye. Erasing it, Akemi turned over on her side, driving away thoughts and preparing to go to the kingdom of Morpheus. Kuma waking up early in the morning, Kushina wanted to get up and go to the kitchen to cook breakfast for the whole family, but she was prevented by someone's hands that gently hugged her from behind. Turning around, the first thing Uzumaki saw was a blonde head of hair. Kushina thought it was Minato, but after looking closer, she realized that it was Naruto. Besides, she remembered that they were not in Konoha. Uzumaki tried to get out of Naruto's embrace, but he pressed her even harder to him. Kushina blushed, and now she looked exactly like a tomato, completely corresponding to the nickname of childhood. 10 minutes later, she finally got out of Naruto's capture. Getting out of bed, Kushina looked at the blonde, who was sleeping peacefully. The girl he chooses will be lucky, Kushina thought, and headed to the bathroom. Having cleaned herself up, the woman came out, finally looked at the cute sleeping face of the boy, and went to the kitchen with a smile. When she got there, she first took out the groceries, and then started cooking. While she was cooking, the rest of the residents of the house, because of the smell and noise from the kitchen, began to wake up slowly. The first, oddly enough, woke up Naruto. At first he couldn't figure out where he was. But when I heard a noise from the kitchen and smelled a pleasant smell of delicious food, the former Jinchuriki remembered everything. To begin with, he decided to take a shower to fully recover, and at the same time to put himself in order. While Naruto was taking water treatments, Naruto woke up. Getting out of bed, wearing only pajamas, which were replaced by orange shorts that did not hide the slender legs of the blonde, and a white t-shirt, the blonde went to the bathroom to freshen up. As soon as she approached the bathroom door, the door suddenly opened and Naruto came out wearing only a towel wrapped around his hips, looking first at Naruto's face, then a little lower. Naruto blushed like a boiled crab. Droplets of water flowed down the inflated chest and the cubes of the blonde's abs, which confused the girl even more. Naruto, in turn, was looking at the daughter of Hokage. The sight of the girl shocked the guy. Small mounds could be seen through the white t-shirt. Seeing where Naruto was looking, Uzumaki shouted, "Pervert," slapped her face and disappeared into the bathroom, pushing away the guy who didn't understand anything. Once again, looking dumbfounded at the closed door, the blonde went into the bedroom to get dressed. Before he could get to his room, Naruto stumbled upon Kushina, who heard Naruto's scream and a slap in the face. Kushina, seeing Naruto's almost naked, pumped-up body, immediately fell into a blush and a small stupor. Naruto, remembering Kushina's character while she was in a stupor, immediately quickly jumped into his room and closed the door. He didn't want to get hit on the neck by a bloody habanero as well. Quickly putting on boxers, black shorts below the knee and a white t-shirt, Uzumaki cautiously looked out from behind the door to make sure that the scarlet-haired woman was not there. Seeing that habanero still went to the kitchen, the former Jinchuriki left the bedroom. Suddenly the blonde man heard a child crying from the next room. Quickly running there, Naruto saw Mito, who, waking up in a place unfamiliar to her, immediately burst into tears. But when he saw Naruto, the child calmed down and pulled the handles to the guy. Sitting on the bed and taking Mito in his arms, he pressed her to him, and gently rocking the girl in his arms, gently said, "Hush Mito. Shoo. I'm near." "Dad," said the younger Uzumaki, and hugged the blonde. Kushina and Naruto, who had just come out of the bath, heard Mito crying and rushed to the bedroom. Running into the room, they saw a touching picture. The guy is sitting on the bed, holding Mito in his arms and hugging her, and she in turn hugs him. This picture made both Kushina and Naruto smile. Feeling other people's eyes on him, Naruto turned his head and saw the women watching him, who were standing with smiles on their faces. Naruto involuntarily responded to their smiles with his charming, dazzling smile. 32 Norm. Then Kushina remembered that breakfast was almost ready, which she informed everyone present. "Come downstairs, breakfast is almost ready," she said, turning around and heading back to the kitchen to finish cooking and set the table. And Naruto, and Mito, who was still sitting in the arms of the blonde, went down to the kitchen and sat down at the table. Minato sat in his office and sorted through mountains of documents. This is not what he dreamed of when he first became a Hokage. There was a knock on the door. "Come in," shouted the fourth and continued to sign the documents. "Father, when will we start training with the elements? I started from the threshold of Menma." "Oh, it's you, Menma. First we'll find out what your element is and only then we'll start training," Minato said wearily, rubbing his eyes, which were already mercilessly aching due to prolonged tension. "How do we know what my element is?" Taking out 2 pieces of paper from the bottom drawer of the desk, Hokage gave them to Menma and said, "Squeeze 1 piece of paper between the index and middle fingers of the right hand, the other between the thumb and index finger of the left hand, pass the chakra into them. That's how we'll find out what elements you have." Taking the sheets, as Minato said, and skipping the chakra, Menma saw that the sheet in his right hand crumpled and burned in his left. "And what does that mean?" The red-haired man asked a question. "You have 2 elements, the primary one is lightning, and the secondary one is fire," the fourth replied. "So when will we start training?" "In the lunch break. I'm busy right now." Menma, Kumo, the house of the Uzumaki clan. "Kushina-san, what are you going to do now?" Naruto decided to ask after they all had breakfast together and cleared the table. "First I'll go to the Raikage, find out about Konoha's involvement in the attack on Uzushio, and later I'll go to the grocery store for lunch," Kushina said a little thoughtfully. "And you?" "I'll go to the Raikage too. I need to find out where I will train," Naruto replied. "Will you leave Mito and Naruto at home?" "Yes," Kushina answered affirmatively. "Naruto, please don't be indignant. I have no one to leave Mito to. And I can't take her with me," Kushina said sternly, seeing her daughter's indignant face. "Okay." Naruto grumbled reluctantly. Naruto and Kushina left the house and went to the Raikage residence. They walked in silence, as Naruto was thinking hard about his training, and Kushina about the morning incident. They did not even notice that the same failed rapist was watching them, and did not notice how they came, arriving in a thoughtful state. After recovering, the woman and the boy entered the residence, and as soon as they approached the office of the Raikage, they saw that a secretary was standing next to the office. "Mr. Raikage is already waiting for you. You can come in," she said in a polite tone. "Thanks." Naruto knocked on the door and heard a loud, "Come in response. In the office, they saw a Raikage sitting at a table, who was studying some documents with a serious face. Distracted from the documents, Raikage carefully looked at the visitors. "And here you are. Have you come to find out about Konoha's involvement in the attack on Uzushio?" Hei asked, gathering his palms into a lock. "Yes," Kushina replied. "Then sit down. Here are the reports from our spies who were there at the time." "Take a look," said the ruler of the cloud, taking out the necessary folder from the desk drawer and handing it to Kushina. Kushina took them with hands shaking with excitement. Sitting on the sofa, she began to study the papers. "Mr. Raikage, may I ask you something?" Naruto asked. "What did you want to know?" Hei answers. "I would like to know about my further training and training at the training ground. You didn't graduate from the academy, did you?" "Not only me, but Naruto hasn't finished either. We have the last year of study left. We're in the same group. I would like to ask, after we graduate from the academy, that we be put on the same team, if possible." "Okay. So," Hei said loudly, "starting tomorrow, you both enter the academy and finish your last year of study there. Well, after the distribution to the team, I will add another person and an experienced jonin to you. At the expense of the training ground, I can provide a fifth. It is just free and in good condition." "Thanks. Can I go there and look around? And yes, by the way, can you tell me where he is?" Naruto asked. "Of course. You will be escorted by my man," replied Raikage, after which he suddenly yelled. "Grant!" At the same moment, a dark-skinned shinobi with white hair and a tattoo on his left shoulder entered, meaning that he inherited his abilities from Sandaime Raikage. A rather tall man with a big nose. He has a perpetually lazy look and long white hair that covered his left eye. Moreover, these very eyes were dark and small. He was dressed in standard Kyomogakure clothing, consisting of a white jacket, characterized in that it covers only the left shoulder, black pants and standard shoes of all shinobi. He was wearing a black shirt under his vest. "Called?" the white-haired man asked lazily. "Yes. Take Naruto to the 5th training ground," Hei instructed his subordinate. "Okay," Darui replied, and turning his head to Naruto, he said, "Let's go." Nodding to him in response, the blond man left the office with him. Before leaving, he stopped, turned his head to the scarlet-haired woman, who was completely absorbed in studying the documents provided to her and said, "Kushina-san, I'll come to lunch." "Okay. Just don't stay too long," she replied without looking up from studying the papers. POV. "Kushina, I looked through one document after another and could not believe what was written. So it's true that Konoha is involved in the destruction of Uzushio. Now I have nothing to do with the village. I will not forgive them for what they have done, they will answer for everything. Minato will especially regret what he did. So, what time is it now? Oh, my God, it's almost 11. It's time for me to go home. We still need to go to the market, buy food." End of POV. Kushina returning the documents to the Raikage, Kushina said, "Okay, I'm going home. I still have lunch to cook." "Okay. Go." She left the residence and went to the market for groceries. While walking to the market, she kept thinking about what was written in the papers. Lost in thought, Habanero did not notice how someone crept up from behind, stunned and dragged into the alley. The unknown immediately tore off her outer clothing and just wanted to touch Kushina's chest, as he was called, "Hey asshole, get your hands off her." The unknown turned his head to the speaker and saw a guy. He looked like he was 13 years old. The kid was standing with an activated Rinnegan, as you already understood this Naruto. Laughing, thinking that a weakling was standing in front of him, he said, "Get out of here while the kid is still intact, otherwise I'll give you a boo-boo." The unknown continued to laugh until Naruto raised both hands in front of him and said, "Shinra Tensei." The rapist was thrown several meters away. Without giving time to recover, Naruto instantly finds himself next to him and, forming a Rasengan in his hand, struck him in the stomach. Rasengan spun the opponent and, causing serious damage, sent him even further, but there was a wall in the way. At full speed, the man slammed into the wall, almost punching through it with his body. Naruto approached the barely alive opponent, grabbed him by the throat, pulled him out of the wall, brought his face closer to his own and said, "If you approach Kushina or anyone from our family again, do not expect mercy. I'll grind you to powder. Do you understand me?" Naruto asked, adding terrifying chakra and ki pressure. The rapist nodded nervously and immediately fainted from such pressure. Throwing him to the ground, Naruto walked up to Kushina and briefly examined her for any injuries or something like that. Finding no damage, he took off his jacket and covered the red-haired woman, lifting her in his arms, and went home. While Naruto was carrying Kushina home, who is still unconscious, he remembered that Kurama had left in his subconscious not only scrolls with techniques, but also a cookbook with different recipes. The blonde did not know when Kushina would wake up, so he decided to cook dinner himself. Descending into the subconscious, into the library, Naruto found this very book and began to look through it. Deciding to make pancakes with jam and fruit salad, since Mito needs vitamins, Naruto found a list of necessary products. After studying it, he came out of his subconscious and created a clone so that he could go grocery shopping. Understanding without words, the clone went to the grocery store, and the original continued on his way home. When he reached the house, Naruto knocked on the door with his foot, as his hands were busy. The door opened and Uzumaki saw Naruto, from behind which Mito looked out. Seeing Kushina covered with a jacket and still unconscious, Naruto was very scared and wanted to ask what happened, but the blonde answered faster. "When I was walking from the training ground, I saw that Kushina-san was going to the market. Some strange guy appeared behind her, stunned her and dragged her into an alley. Naturally, I was in a small stupor at first, but quickly recovering, I hurried and very timely. This guy tried to rape her. She was unconscious. I naturally intervened. In general, I gave him a good beating and threatened that if he tried to repeat it again, would grind him to powder. After examining her completely, I found no traces. Since I intervened in time, she only has torn clothes. So don't worry, she's fine. Now help me." Good. After going into the house, the brother and sister went up to the second floor. Entering Naruto and Kushina's room, the blonde laid Habanera on the bed. "Naruto, please change her clothes and look after her and Mito. When he wakes up, go down to the kitchen." "Okay. And what are you going to do?" "Well, I'm going to cook something for lunch. And then Mito needs to be fed and eaten by himself. It is still unknown when Kushina-san will wake up." "Do you know how to cook?" Naruto asks, slightly shocked. "I can do it a little." Naruto answers and asked with slightly narrowed eyes. "Do you doubt it?" "Of course not." Naruto replied, blushing slightly. "It's just unusual when a guy can cook." "Well, there's nothing unusual here. When you live alone, willy-nilly you have to learn to cook," Naruto replied. From the author, yes, Naruto knows how to cook. "Okay, I went to the kitchen, the clone has already brought the groceries. Don't forget what I asked." Without waiting for an answer from the girl, Uzumaki left the room. Going down to the kitchen, the former Jinchuriki saw the bags of food brought by the clone. Having disassembled them, the guy started cooking. While the blonde was cooking dinner, Kushina woke up. At first she didn't understand where she was, but when she saw the excited faces of Naruto and Mito and the familiar walls of the room next to her, she realized that she was at home, in her room with Naruto. Sitting down on the bed, and looking at Uzumaki's daughter, the elder asked, "What happened? Why was I at home?" Feeling a slight coolness in the chest area, she looked down and shifted her gaze to the blonde, immediately asked, "And why are my clothes torn?" "Naruto brought you. He said that he was returning from the training ground and saw that some guy had stunned you, dragged you into an alley and tried to rape you, but Naruto intervened and saved you from the rapist. At the same time, he was thoroughly, according to him, beaten." "Are you sure about that?" the scarlet-haired woman asked. "Yes," Naruto answered with a nod of her head. "He spoke very seriously, and it doesn't look like he's lying." "I see." Kushina wanted to talk to Naruto, but when she didn't see him in the room, she asked, "Where's Naruto?" "In the kitchen. Cooks lunch." Habanera immediately looked at her with a surprised look. Naruto saw her surprised face and said, "I was also surprised when I heard it from him." In confirmation, the noise of dishes and the pleasant smell of food came from the kitchen. Getting out of bed, Kushina told Naruto and Mito to go to the kitchen and not wait for her, wash their hands and sit down at the table, as she needed to change clothes. After washing their hands and going down to the kitchen, the Uzumaki juniors saw that the blonde was standing with his back to them in an apron and cutting something. The table was almost set. There was a large plate of ready-made pancakes with jam and a plate of sweets on it. It looked so appetizing that both girls' stomachs rumbled. Naruto turned around at the sound of hungry stomachs, and saw that Naruto and Mito were standing in the kitchen. Uzumaki smiled and said, "Sit down at the table, I'll finish now. And by the way, is Kushina-san awake?" "Yes, she said she would come down now." Naruto replied. "Okay." The blonde put Mito at the table, then she sat down and waited for Naruto to finish, and when mom would come down. Kushina did not take long to wait. When Habanera was in the kitchen, the blonde had already taken off his apron and was putting a plate of fruit salad on the table. Seeing Uzumaki Sr. in the kitchen, he excitedly asked, "How are you feeling, Kushina-san?" "Okay. By the way, stop adding prefixes, san, chan and the like. It makes me nervous," Kushina said menacingly. "And besides, we are already considered a family." After receiving a nervous nod from the former Jinchuriki, Habanera asked, "Naruto, is what Naruto told me true?" "Yes. I think it would be better to inform the Raikage about what happened. Otherwise, there will be no problems. Enjoy your meal." After tasting the blonde's cooking, Naruto, Kushina and Mito groaned with pleasure, as it was very tasty. Very tasty. Thanks. I tried." The former Jubi carrier replied with a smile. After lunch, Naruto collected the dishes and was going to wash them, but Kushina beat him to it. Uzumaki wanted to be indignant, but remembering the character of the scarlet-haired woman, he did not argue. Deciding that there was nothing to do at home, the blonde decided to go to the training ground to train. Kushina saw that Naruto was going to go somewhere, asked, "Are you going somewhere?" "To the training ground, to train. At the same time, I will send a clone to the Raikage so that he will report everything about what happened." "I see. Naruto, I have a request for you." "Which one?" "Please do Naruto's training before graduation from the academy." "And then almost no one trained her. Unless I taught her a little seals." Naruto looked at the blonde, taking a deep breath, said, "Okay. Naruto, get ready for training. We'll pull up standard techniques and teach you something new." The blonde beamed with joy and immediately ran to her room to change for training. After changing, she went downstairs and went to the exit, where Naruto was standing and waiting for her. Having put on his shoes, Uzumaki said, "We're off." We'll probably be late. If anything, I'll send a clone. Okay. Just don't linger. And be careful. Waving, both left the house, and went to the landfill. Along the way, Naruto created a clone and sent it to the residence. The blondes walked along the main street, looking at the doors cut into the huge rocks, as well as their dwelling given to them by the rakeage. Walking next to the sister, the former Jinchuriki asked her. Naruto, tell me what you learned during the time that you were in Konoha? Talking about Konoha was harder than it seemed, because their father betrayed them, sold them for 3 sharp pieces of steel and a clink of coins. The blonde looked away from the rocks and clouds and looked at him. After hearing Naruto's words, she felt bitterness and sadness in his words, but still decided to answer. Yes, actually, I do not own anything, except for few ninjutsu of rank D and a couple of C and B, no more, since my father told my mother to study with Menma much better, because he is smarter and grasps knowledge faster, and I remain to refine the knowledge obtained by rare lessons. I still know the technique of replacement, well, illusory clone, kunai or shuriken hits 4 or 5 times at most. This is where my track record of techniques and skills ends. I see. Well, don't worry, I'll pull you up in many ways. At the same time, I will teach you some cool techniques. Shall we rub the nose of Minato and the upstart Menmi? Naruto asked cheerfully. Naruto smiled happily and immediately nodded. Finally, they reached the training ground. Uzumaki asked the rakeage for permission to train at one of the training grounds in the morning. Wooden poles, several trees and a stream flowing from somewhere from the tops of the highest cliff. So, like everything we need to eat. Naruto said, looking around the training ground. To begin with, a warm-up, then a little sparring and the training itself. Can we train together or separately, if you have a program that you are doing? Oh, Naruto. Naruto stood and looked at the training ground carefully, finding many differences from the training ground where she trained in Konoha. Hearing Naruto's voice, she looked at him and said. Sorry, I was examining the polygon comparing it with the Konoha polygon. The blonde looked at her, sighed, well, and repeated what he said, to which she replied. I will train with you. The blonde Uzumaki replied with a smile. Okay. Well, their first joint training session went. First, they went through the entire polygon, examining for traps that could have been left by previous users of the polygon, and noting the circle along which they will run in the future. Naruto marked the start and finish with his foot. First, running 6 laps of 500 meters each, push-ups and press exercises on the branch of a huge oak tree that grew in the middle of the polygon. Naruto stretched so that the muscles did not cramp and there was no stretching. Naruto performed the same exercises as Naruto, but 2 times more. Naruto looked at him and involuntarily smiled. After all, this is exactly how she dreamed that her brother would train with her, help, protect and be her support. But Naruto is not her brother, but a very nice guy. Of course she needs to grow up, so does he for more. It was then that she blushed, her cheeks burned treacherously. Seeing this, Naruto only asked. Are you all right, or are you blushing? Then he went up to her and touched her forehead saying. There doesn't seem to be a temperature. Then she jumped away from him, muttering that everything was fine. She smiled at him, and he smiled at her. I wonder what's wrong with her? Thought the former Jinchuriki of the Nine-Tailed. Okay, let's start sparring, and then we'll have a snack. Naruto said, pointing with his head at the backpack that was lying near the oak tree. Naruto shook her head in agreement. They stood opposite each other. After standing for about a minute, Naruto shook his head, as did Naruto as a sign of readiness. First they grabbed taijutsu. Naruto pushed off with her right foot from the ground, flying up, she hit Naruto with her left foot, who blocked the blow with 2 hands. Naruto took a step back, and Naruto did a backflip, landing in a stance, to which Naruto said, "Not bad, Naruto, not bad at all. Continue." Naruto said, and Naruto nodded. Now Naruto has gone on the attack. Running up to Naruto, she went down, making him a cut. The blonde jumped up and tried to kick her, but Naruto turned over and jumped back through her hands. Shadow cloning technique, the blonde's ear heard, and now a clone is standing next to Naruto. Accelerating, Naruto went on the offensive, using the same technique as the first time, dodging the Uzumaki clone hit the blonde in the stomach, but instead of a soft body, he felt the hard bark of the log that Naruto replaced, and immediately turned to the sound of footsteps. "Naruto, I'm sorry, but I can't train anymore, my chakra is at 0, and my head is spinning after a blow." Naruto rested one hand on a tree. "Okay. Let's take a break. You need to recuperate a little and come to your senses, we'll eat at the same time. After a little rest, I will teach you the shadow cloning technique," Uzumaki said, relaxing. "Thanks. I'm interested myself." Sitting under an oak tree, they ate and laughed. After regaining strength, we continued training. Naruto summoned the shadow clone and told him what to do, sent the clone and Naruto to train in another part of the training ground. Naruto, the essence of this technique is like that of an illusory clone, the creation of a clone, but material. Only this technique requires more chakra. The pros and cons of this technique will be discussed later. Here are the seals. Having said that, he is folding the cloning seals. "Did you remember?" "Yes." The blonde nodded. "Well, then get started." "Okay. So let's start," Naruto said, standing up and folding the seal. After a few hours of training, she managed to summon a shadow clone. Kunoichi was happy as a little girl when she did it, so she turned to the Naruto clone, who told her, "Well done. And now walking on trees. So you distribute the chakra over the body, so that it supports you in an upright position with the help of the chakra to stick to the surface. Only if you let go a lot, you will tear off the bark, if you let go a little, you will break yourself. You have 3 more hours, no more, then dispel it." Having said that, the clone smiled and threw her a kunai. Naruto looked questioningly at kunai, and then at the clone. "With this you will mark where you got to." Got it. Well, let's get started," Naruto said again. An hour later she reached the golden mean and an hour later she still climbed this fucking tree. She smiled tiredly and dispelled the clone, her head spun sharply and she could not resist and began to fall, closing her eyes, expecting a painful encounter with the ground, but instead she felt Naruto's strong embrace. Opening her eyes, she saw blonde hair, and immediately passed out from mild exhaustion. POV. Naruto. When Naruto and the clone went to the other end of the training ground, I decided to repeat all the mastered techniques. I started with Rasengan. Having created a Rasengan with one hand, he immediately attacked a rock that was not far away. The technique immediately left a small dent in the rock. Bad. It could have been better. Such a result is no good. Okay. What's next? Shinra Tensei. And then, all the small stones that were lying at my feet after applying Rasengan on the rock immediately scattered in different directions from the invisible shock wave. Yes, the result will be better here. So the day passed. I've trained all the techniques I know. Then I tried to remember what other techniques Rinnegan had. I tried to use Shirato's abilities. After that, several craters formed on the landfill. Later I received information from a clone, which I sent to the wreckage. Hei was furious at the news that the clone reported and almost demolished the residence. Later, having calmed down, he said that he would take measures. I decided to leave it at that. When I came to the place where Naruto was training, I saw her sleeping on the ground, and the clone was sitting next to her and meditating. I scattered the clone, took Naruto in my arms and walked towards the house. POV. Kushina. When Naruto and Naruto left for training, I started cooking dinner. Mito slept in the room and did not interfere with my cooking. I decided to cook ramen. According to Naruto, this is Striped Cheek's favorite dish. By 8 o'clock the children came. Well, as soon as they arrived, Naruto was carrying an unconscious Naruto in his arms. "What's wrong with her?" I asked worriedly. "Tired in training," Naruto replied. "Very well. Take her to her room, just be quiet, Mito is sleeping there." "Okay." By the way, I informed the Raikage about the attack. He was furious at the beginning, but later calmed down and said that he would take all security measures, and that guy would be severely punished. "I see. Dinner is ready, so take her and come down." "Yeah. I'm just going to take a quick shower." After 20 minutes, Naruto was already out of the shower and sitting at the table. I put 2 plates of ramen on the table and we started eating. Very tasty. He's already finished everything. "Thank you, Naruto. I am very pleased. Should I put more?" "Yes. If possible." "What kind of questions?" "Of course you can." I went to the stove and poured more ramen, and then sat down next to Naruto. "You know, I'm very grateful to you for saving me. Come on. After all, they are not strangers." He grinned and suddenly it became much easier for me. "I will protect you all, and you will cook a wonderful ramen." Agreed. And even though he said so, I still wanted to thank him. And suddenly I came up with a bad idea, but still better than nothing. I reached out to kiss his cheek and everything would have been fine if he hadn't turned his head in my direction at the very last moment. Our lips touched. Naruto did not arbitrarily begin to respond to the kiss. I was taken aback by surprise, and it was at this moment that a sleepy Naruto entered the kitchen. Konoha Minato, tired after hard work, was returning home from the residence for lunch. The constant routine with documents bothered him, but this is an invariable duty of the Hokage and it needs to be done. For there is no one else. Of course there are still advisors, but that's why they are advisors. The weather was excellent today, although very stuffy. The bright yellow disk stood at the zenith and involuntarily threw its rays at everything it could get to. There were no clouds in the clear and blue sky. People hid in various restaurants and other establishments, in search of shelter, and people forced to work, escaped as best they could. "Menma, I'm home," Minato said as soon as he opened the door. Casually taking off his shoes and putting them in the hallway, he followed to the kitchen in search of something edible. Of course, after the abduction of Kushina, there was no one to follow the house, and because of this there was a mess everywhere, and there was nothing to eat for a long time except custard noodles and other quickly cooked dishes. "Hello, father." Menma greeted father when he went into the kitchen and nodded to him in confirmation of his words. "Are you ready for training?" Namikaze Sr. asked, rummaging in one of the shelves of the locker. "Yeah, you promised a workout today." Picking up the kettle and brewing noodles, he immediately hurried to answer. Training with his father has always been a joy to him, and with him he will get more strength and be able to achieve what he wants. "I remember, so chew, and let's go." "I'm free until 2, looking at the clock," Namikaze Sr. said. No matter how hard he tried, but time was running out and it was quite difficult to bring his son into his schedule. Therefore, he tried to give him as much time as possible. "By the way, father, we should hire a housekeeper," Menma casually added, without much pleasure eating ramen, which already caused feelings of disgust. "Yes, and you won't be full of one ramen, but you won't be able to go to a diner or restaurant all the time, and so you'll come for lunch or dinner, and the food is ready on the table." The young man continued to explain his idea, immersed in dreams of a housekeeper. Minato liked this idea, and it's not good for the Hokage to live in such a pigsty. I don't want to lose my reputation, Minato thought and nodded in confirmation of his thoughts. Then I'll do it. Namikaze Sr. said and headed out of the house. Seeing that his son was already finishing eating, he decided to hurry him up. I'm waiting at the training ground. I'm on my way. Menma exclaimed and flew after his father, who was walking in the direction of the exit from the house. Upon arrival at the training ground, Minato sent Menma to do a little warm-up. After that, a taijutsu sparring followed, in which the Hokage only defended himself, but Menma attacked accordingly. During the sparring, Minato pointed out mistakes to him and gave him light slaps on the back of the head, which made him angry, but he tried to keep his anger to himself and tried to control his emotions. After sparring, Menma needed a little rest. Here you go. The Hokage said in a calm voice and handed him a white piece of paper, in which he recognized a piece of paper for determining the elements. Menma knew what to do with him. Holding the sheet between his fingers, he directed the chakra into it. The leaf crumpled, which indicated that his element was lightning. Hurrah! Menma exclaimed and looked at his father with a big smile on his face. I can master the thunder god's flight. Namikaze Jr. said happily. His father just smiled. Well, that's very good. I already know who to assign to his team as a sensei. It remains only to teach him control over the elements and give a couple of techniques. So, now let's take control of the elements. Hasten to stop the joyful cries of Minato's son. I expected you to have the lightning element, so I prepared this. Hokage handed his son a fishing line made of chakra-productive metal. And why do I need it? Menma asked uncomprehendingly, looking at his father. In response, the father took out another fishing line, wrapped it around the kun, and threw it into a nearby mannequin located at the landfill. Then the lightning chakra went through it and crashed into the mannequin. She tore it into small pieces. The guy looked at it with his eyes wide open and was already looking forward to future training. Your task. On the fishing line, let the chakra transformed into the element of lightning, so that it runs through the fishing line in a thin trickle, and crashes into the mannequin. I got it, Menma said happily, and just like his father wrapped the kunai with a fishing line, threw it into the mannequin. And immediately tried to let the lightning chakra through the fishing line, but instead of a trickle, a clot of chakra flew out, which simply dispersed in different directions without reaching the goal. I have nothing to do here, train son, said Minato, patting his distressed son on the shoulder. Okay, Dad. Menma smiled and began to concentrate on the fishing line. Minato watched his son for another minute, but then disappeared in a flash of technology, going to his office. Menma was busy until the evening, but no special results were observed. Kyumo. What's going on here? Naruto asked sleepily, looking at her mother and boyfriend. Naruto did not see their kiss because Kushina was sitting with her back to the door, and Naruto was next to her, but because of the red-haired one it was not visible. When they were unconsciously kissing, they heard the creaking of the floor near the door that leads to the kitchen. Kushina and the blonde immediately recoiled from each other, so that Naruto did not see their actions and did not throw a scandal about morality and that this was her mother, and Naruto was younger than her. And nothing. Naruto and Kushina answered in unison. I was just looking at the stripes on Naruto's cheeks. I've never seen them up close before, Kushina said and looked menacingly at Uzumaki's side. She added. Right, Naruto? Yes, Kushina. Naruto responded nervously and energetically, getting up from the table and leaving the kitchen. He added, I'm going to sleep. Get up early tomorrow and have a good night. And immediately runs up to the top, to his room. Naruto looked suspiciously at the trail of the guy who ran away, then turned her gaze to her mother. Kushina looked after Naruto, hurried to change the subject. Naruto, sit down at the table. POV. Naruto, what's the matter with them? Strange behavior of mom, and even Naruto. Their excuse is that the mother was looking at his stripes. It's all weird. Did they really kiss? No, that can't be. Mom didn't do that. Okay, I won't bother my head with this. I'll have to watch them quietly, and now I'll have dinner and go to my room with Mito. Naruto is right, I have to get up early tomorrow. End of POV. Naruto POV. Kushina, and how am I supposed to look into my own daughter's eyes now? I hope she didn't notice anything, or at least didn't understand. And it was nice and... Stop. What am I thinking about? This is wrong. But still nice. I wonder if it was by chance or did Naruto deliberately set it up? What should I do? Did he fall in love with me? I admit he's handsome and very sexy. I seem to have fallen head over heels in love with him, but he's still young. Okay, we'll see later. End of POV. Kushina POV. Naruto, and what the fuck was that? Why did Kushina climb to kiss? She wasn't drunk, was she? Or was it? And that, by the way, was not bad. What the hell am I thinking? It's not right. She's my mom. No, she's not my mother here she's just Kushina Uzumaki and the woman I live with. Back to the same place, and if it's by accident? Well, no. And how can I be in the same room with her now, not to mention the same bed? Okay, as Haydn would say, let's pretend that nothing happened and fuck it. I'll pretend to be asleep and see what Kushina does. End of POV. Naruto. As soon as Naruto entered the room, he immediately undressed and got into bed and tried to fall asleep. In the kitchen, meanwhile, there is a conversation between Kushina and Naruto. Naruto, how are the trainings going? The elder Uzumaki was curious and looked intently at her daughter. Well. Naruto first tested my skills, then sparred. Says it's not bad for my age. By the way, mom. He taught me the technique of shadow cloning and walking on a tree with the help of clones in a day. I did it all right. Naruto boasted happily. Kushina was slightly surprised and asked for the sake of interest. And how many clones were you able to make? So far, only one. After training, the clone dissipated and I immediately passed out, but before that, Naruto caught me. Uzumaki summed up more joyfully and with a smile. Okay. Go to bed. Tomorrow you and Naruto go to the academy. Okay, mom. Thank you for dinner, it was very tasty. Good night. He kisses his mother on the cheek and goes to his room. Good night. Kushina answered in response and began to clean the kitchen. After the kitchen was put in order, Uzumaki went into the room. Entering their bedroom with Naruto, Kushina saw that Naruto was sleeping with his back turned to her half. She remembered the kiss in the kitchen and immediately blushed. Quickly changing clothes, Habanera lay down next to him and immediately hugged him and whispered softly. You know, Naruto. I fell in love with you after all. You are very kind, calm and responsible. If I were a little younger, I'd love to be your girlfriend. It's a pity that this is just a dream. Tears appeared in the corners of her eyes and Kushina hurried to remove them. Good night, Naruto. Standing up a little and gently kissing on the cheek, she immediately whispered. It was on the cheek that I wanted to kiss you, in gratitude for my salvation, but you turned around at the wrong time. Although I really liked the kiss on the lips. Kushina lay back down and immediately fell asleep soundly, while gently hugging the blonde from behind. Hearing such words from the scarlet-haired, Naruto was stunned, although he admitted that he also really liked the kiss. But having decided to think about it later, he immediately passed out without feeling that he was hugged from behind. POV. Naruto. In the morning I woke up quite early, but when I went down to the kitchen after all the procedures, Kushina was already working hard there. It smelled of toast and scrambled eggs. After looking at the red-haired girl and immediately turning away, he began to wait for Naruto. "Good morning. If you remember the sun, here's a ray." The only person capable of defusing an awkward situation entered the kitchen, just like yesterday. "Eat faster, otherwise you will be late for the academy on the first day. And this is not acceptable," Kushina instructed as if nothing had happened, while shaking her finger. The desired impression was achieved, and after 15 minutes everything was already eaten and everyone was ready to perform, toward strength and knowledge. "Good luck on the first day." The ex-Namikaze wished us, carelessly waving her elegant hand. Darui was already waiting for us at the exit of the house. After greeting us, he led us to the academy. I must admit that Kumo is as beautiful a village as Konoha. Mountains and fresh air, what could be better? Of course, there are no ancient trees that were located near the village, but still Kumo was in no way inferior in beauty. It had its own slice of grace and some kind of obsession. In such reflections, we reached the academy. Outwardly, it did not differ much from ours, only it was a little bit bigger. Going inside and walking through the spacious corridors, we reached the classroom, near which Chunin was standing. A standard Kumo uniform, several scrolls in his vest pockets and a mask on his face. No, not like Kakashi's. This one rather resembled a gas mask from Kiri. "Are you Naruto and Naruto?" He asked his question in a posed tone. It is immediately obvious that a person does not like to waste time and immediately gets down to business. "Yes." Naruto murmured faintly. Naruto, however, limited himself to a nod. "My name is Ikamaru Fujiro, nice to meet you." "Well, thank you Darui-san for seeing them off." "You're welcome," said the owner of the white afro and disappeared into Shanshin. "Well. And now let's go to class." Chunin rattled in greeting and hurried to push us into the classroom. When we entered, interested glances were immediately directed at us. 25 people stared at us steadily, and seemed to burn with their eyes. Among them I noticed one familiar person. Ni Yujito sat at the window and looked, let's say, like Uchiha. I also noticed 3 other people whom I also knew a little. These are Omoi, Ko Samui and Karui. They looked at us with little interest. "This is Naruto and Naruko Uzumaki. From this day on, they will study with you." "Nice to meet you." Naruto replied in an emotionless voice and looked askance at his sister. "I hope we will become friends," my sister said with a smile and waved her little hand to everyone in a friendly way. "Well, take the empty seats." Naruko sat down in the first place she came across with some girl, and I didn't have much choice left. I went to the place near the window and sat down next to Yujito. She looked at me with a certain haughtiness and turned away to the window. After such, let's say, greetings, they began to explain the topic to us. I didn't really listen, because I already knew all this. So a few lessons passed, and then they arranged training sparring. All the students fought at the genin level, which is already better than in Konoha. Naruko managed to bring the fight to a draw, although it was given to her with great difficulty. Next match, Naruto Uzumaki vs Yujito Research Institute. This is a twist, I thought, to fight against the Research Institute. In the past, she was a strong opponent, although I fought with her resurrected, but here she is without Matatabi, which means she is weaker than in my world. And why am I actually worried? There are no special opponents for me here. Naruto Uzumaki, against Yujito Research Institute. Chunin nodded to the children to take up positions. There were whispers from all sides, and if an ordinary genin would not have heard anything, then Naruto clearly heard everything, highlighting for himself individual details from phrases like, "Beginner, against the best student, he has no chance," this fight will be quick, etc. Does it turn out that she is the best in the academy? Interesting. The same Sasuke, only with long hair and a cute face. Stop. What am I even thinking about? What a pretty face. Naruto. Forget it. It's too early. The opponents stood opposite each other and cast appraising glances. Yujito knew everyone in this academy and knew who was capable of what. But this newbie. A dark horse in such a familiar pen. The level of his powers was unknown. And he was suspiciously different from everyone. There was no admiring look directed at her, or the same cries of imminent victory. He stood and assessed her, as if he saw through her and was just waiting for her to act. But she couldn't lose. She is the best in her entire stream. And the village has high hopes for her, which means she must justify them at any cost. And if she loses to this newcomer now, then all her efforts will be buried alive. What do I remember about her? The Research Institute prefers close combat. Now she is not a Jinchuriki and is an order of magnitude weaker than before. But it's still Yujito, it's Yujito. For me, she does not pose a threat, but in close combat she has a chance, albeit a ghostly one, but there is. Finally, Yujito could not stand it and fell towards her opponent. Admiring sighs, were heard from the side, marveling at the speed of this kunoichi. It was utter disappointment. She had speed, Naruto noted, but the reaction is tight, and the former feline grace has disappeared somewhere without a trace. Quick a direct blow to the head, a hard block, and with the same speed, the left leg rushed into Uzumaki's side. Another block and a shift in the string. A cut, a rebound, and a decently tired Yujito catches such necessary air now. Looking at the opponent, she was amazed. Her partner not only wasn't tired, but it also seemed that he wasn't doing anything at all. His chest rose and fell steadily and evenly. He was breathing calmly, and his face was expressionless. It seemed he had a mask instead of a face. The appraising gaze slid over the blonde, and the brain feverishly calculated all sorts of situations. Catching her breath, Yujito rushed at her opponent with all the speed available to her, intending to complete everything in one stroke. A distracting maneuver with the left hand, and the right hand is in a steel grip. Pressing the brush, and kunoichi falls to the ground with a groan of pain. His eyes are frantically running in different directions. Winner, Naruto Uzumaki. Chunon's voice reaches her ears and makes its way inside, through the throbbing pain in her temples, and the frantic rhythm of her heart. Well done, Uzumaki smiled kindly and gave his hand to the girl. At the same time, he imperceptibly healed the damage. Thanks for the fight. If you wish, we can repeat it. A small bow in front of the standing girl, a glance at Chunin, who nodded in confirmation and beckoned his sister to follow him. But turning around, he said, "You have good skills, but your stamina is lame. You rely on your speed, but it wouldn't hurt to add flexibility to it. That's why you lost. But it's fixable. Train well and maybe you'll catch up with me." There was a deathly silence at the training ground. Everyone stared with dilated eyes at the departing blondes. When they first appeared in the classroom, the male half looked with interest in the direction of the girl, and at the guy, somehow appreciatively and with contempt. Girls are fundamentally the opposite, except for Naruto, more friendly, Yujito. Ko Samui. What do you want? Surprised? I didn't think there would be anyone stronger than you. I didn't imagine it myself. Yujito thoughtfully looked at the back of the retreating guy from the academy's training ground. Ko Samui. Do you know who they are? Don't you know yet? She was genuinely surprised. Yes, almost everyone knows about it. Since their arrival in the village, the gossip has not subsided, and many still continue to discuss this guy. He is considered a genius. One shinobi saw part of his training. He then said that the Chunins do not practice such techniques as he does. And in terms of physics, his training is at the level of a weak jonin. They are the last representatives of the Uzumaki clan and now live in our village. Isn't it great? Interesting. Hey! How dare you hurt Yujito-chan? Someone from the crowd shouted and quickly jumped forward. Then consonant assent was heard and all the hatred fell on the poor Naruto. Garbage, that's all Naruto threw, in the best traditions of his old friend, turning half a turn to the shouter and walking in his own direction again. What? I'm talking to you. The boy flew up to Naruto and grabbed him by the shoulder, turned him around. He couldn't finish. Uzumaki felt a strong thirst for blood, which immediately crushed him to the ground, and the rest of the children who were at this training ground were shackled. Even Chunin couldn't move. Cursing, Naruto removed the pressure of ki, mentally cursing himself for intemperance. He was tired of this story with the fan club, even from his academy. And everything is the same here. Let's go. Naruto. Why yes. But just as they were about to leave, Darui landed next to them. He immediately handed over a piece of paper. Naruto looked at him blankly and asked, "What's that?" "This is the order of the Raikage about your immunity, because of that attack on Naruto's mother, Kushina." "Already? And what did Mr. Raikage do with the one who attacked Kushina?" The blonde man asked in surprise. "Yes, already. He was demoted to the rank of genin and sent to hard labor in a pig farm for 10 years, under serious supervision." "I see," Naruto said with satisfaction and moved on. "Well, how was your first day at the new academy?" "Wonderful, Mom. We had sparring sessions. I have a draw." "Well done. Do you like Naruto?" "Nothing, Kushina-san." Naruto rubbed the lump formed on the back of his head and glared viciously in the direction of the ex-Namikaze. "And don't look at me like that. I asked you to use only your first name. Understood?" Seeing how the blonde nodded vigorously, she smiled contentedly and called everyone to the table. What could be more beautiful than eating at a table in a place with loved ones, especially when you didn't have anyone before? So Naruto sometimes wondered this question. There simply wasn't time to enjoy such moments before. Konoha was uneasy. Even inside the Namikaze family. This tense situation inside was visible to the naked eye. Training in strong techniques was also not very successful. Maybe we have a chance in Kyumo. "Naruto? What are you thinking about?" No, nothing like that. I just thought I'd go practice. Train? I'm with you. With full combat readiness, Naruto responded. "Dad!" This exclamation made the guy choke and, clearing his throat, turn around and look at the discontented and frowning face of the younger representative of the fair sex in this house. Mito, what? Having come to his senses and having already reacted more calmly to such words, Naruto asked with a smile. "Are you going to train me like one-san?" "Of course." Dad responded cheerfully, and the girl's face lit up with happiness. "Only when you grow up." Immediately erased the joyful smile from Naruto's face. "Don't be so upset, Mito. I promise your time will come." "Really, Dad?" The little girl timidly responded, looking at Uzumaki with the most devoted eyes. Really. Kushina with, ahem. That is, Kushina. I'm going to practice. Naruto, as soon as you get ready, catch up. Naruto said, simultaneously kissing Mito on her small forehead and slightly ruffling her hair. Good. The blonde shouted after him and stared at her portion of rice, with pieces of pork. Good. The blonde shouted after him and stared at her portion of rice, with pieces of pork. Looking at his back, Naruto returned to her thoughts again. And what does she actually know about Naruto? Their first meeting didn't show anything special. It was just that he was standing behind Sensei and carefully looking around the classroom. And during the whole time of their neighborhood at the desk, he did not say a word, except for a small greeting, but nothing more. Then this performance of her brother, and again the problem is in Naruto. Unlike everyone else, he just rudely drove him away. And again, an annoying question pops up on the verge of consciousness. And who is Naruto? Of all the classmates, he was the only one who did not pay attention to the opinions of others and continued to communicate with her. And now all this knowledge of his. Naruto will never admit it to him, but when he starts training, sometimes she secretly watches him. As a child, her mother taught her how to write the seal correctly, which hides almost the entire chakra. So to speak. In case of unsolicited pursuers. She watched his training with fascination and involuntarily blushed when Naruto was bare to the waist. At such moments, his face changed, as if his body was training itself, and his thoughts were going somewhere far away. And his attitude towards her. No, to her family. On the very first day she saw this inner core in his eyes, when they were in this house for the first time. But today. For the first time, Naruto was scared to the point of trembling in her knees, and a lump stuck in her throat that was not going to go anywhere. It seemed that his purple eyes had become an order of magnitude darker, and his chakra was colder. She doesn't know how she felt it, she just felt it as something natural that she did it. Naruto. Are you all right? Kushina's voice rang out like a bolt from the blue. Naruto took a cursory glance at her mother and only after 5 seconds finally came to her senses. Yes. Sure. And a slight smile. I'm sorry, I was just thinking. You'd better hurry up, otherwise Naruto won't wait forever. Good. POV. Naruto, okay. The training ground is completely at my disposal, which means it's time to start training. Naruto, still not there? Okay. What should I study next? In principle, you need to master everything. From the Way of the Gods, I know only the technique of Shinra Tensei, and this is extremely small. I own Rasengan as well as my father, so I don't have to complain. At least something comforting for my meager arsenal. Taijutsu is normal, Kenjutsu is also. I won't say anything about Genjutsu, except for calling Kurama's projection to intimidate and Shikumi. I can't do anything else. To study. Continue to master the Way of the Gods, or Gakido. And the elements would not hurt to do. Naruto also needs to teach them CSR. And how to do everything in time. I don't have an eternity of time, and there are so many things and problems every day. It turned out to be awkward with Kushina-san, thank God she can't read minds, otherwise I would definitely have flown in right now. Uzumaki shuddered at this thought, remembering the recent punishment that followed after such an appeal to her. And here's another problem, Naruto thought when he felt the gaze on his humble person. Uzumaki looked at them with a Rinnegan and only sighed. 4 girls were sitting in the bushes. Namely, Yujito, Ko Samui, Mabui and a very restrained person named Karui. And what do they want from me? Will they just sit and watch? But it's unpleasant. Took a deep breath, Naruto shouted, "Hey, girls. Of course, I can understand your position and your actions driven by your idea, but I will ask you to come out and voice the question you are interested in, or questions. Depending on how many of them you have, well, or at least just turn around and leave me alone with myself." End of POV. Naruto. The girls, hearing his words, looked at each other in surprise, went out to the training ground. They were mentally asking. How did he find us? We hid well. As soon as the four entered the training ground and approached him, Naruto asked, "And so? And what do you want from me? And what makes you think that we need something from you?" The red-haired woman was indignant, fixing an evil look at the guy. "Well, it's not like I've been following myself from the academy itself. Although I only noticed it now, Karui. Chill out." "But Mabui. Why are you protecting him?" "Because he's right." Green-eyed snapped. "Excuse us," she said and grabbed Karui by the hand, towed her to the side. "Naruto-kun," Yujito mumbled uncertainly and cast glances around. Finally gathering her strength, she blurted out, "Train me." And coming to her senses, she added, "That is, us." Dash. What does, mean? The blonde said with displeasure and looked a little offended. That, stung her. What does, mean? She repeated again, this time shouting, "I came to you, asked for a request, and you didn't say anything except your, He could have just politely declined for decency's sake. "Hey, what are you doing?" "I was just thinking." The guy started to justify himself, but he was interrupted by the appearance of a new actor. "Naruto? And what are they doing here?" Naruto asked in surprise and stared at the four girls. She didn't know two of them very well, only as belonging to her class, and that was it. And here are the ones next to Naruto. "Who else are you?" Karui picked up the old one again, and judging by the palm that met her face, Mabui's instructions were not heard. "Me? My name is Naruto." The girl smiled kindly. "Don't you know? We're all in the same class." Uzumaki was surprised again and still repeated her question. But Naruto answered instead of the girls. "They followed me from the academy, and while you were at home, Yujito became my student, as well as her friends." "And?" The named one was surprised, and Karui stopped being indignant and shouting at everything that moves. "Yeah. Just like Kushina. Is she by any chance Uzumaki?" Naruto thought and made a note to check it out. "Okay. Since I have more wards, we will take care of your training right now." The blonde exclaimed cheerfully and created a clone for each person, each takes one for herself. After that, the clone will test your abilities and begin to consolidate the basics and eliminate gaps in them. Well, Naruto will continue where we left off. "Okay." The girls answered in chorus and dispersed around the training ground. "Akemi, is something wrong?" "No. Nothing. Well, judging by the fact that you've been picking at your breakfast for 5 minutes and looking at one point, something has definitely happened." Irionen continued to press. A tired sigh seemed to resound throughout the estate. And the look similar to this sigh again stared at the girl. "Akemi, I know that I am giving you too little time than you would like. But you know I'll always help you solve your problems, Mom. Hokage-sama said that Naruto-kun was kidnapped. And Naruto too, along with Kushina-san and me." "What? This can't be happening." Tsunade waved away and again took a sip of the sake bottle standing next to the half-eaten miso soup. "Mom. You can tear yourself away from your sake and listen to me. What I said is true. Obito and I went to the Hokage and he said that no traces were found during the investigation." Haim Senju put down the sake bottle and looked at her daughter thoughtfully. "Kushina has been kidnapped and Minato has not yet searched the whole country of fire? It's weird. But why, in that case, was not even told to me? Only if, Akemi, get ready for the academy, I'm on business." Tsunade rammed and walked briskly towards the exit. If this guess is confirmed, Minato Namikaze sat in his invariable office in a pile of papers and did the same work, which is added as a gift to the title of Kage. Unfortunately, he could not shift it to anyone and had to do everything himself. And some documents should never see the light. It's hard without loyal allies, sighed Hokage and stared at one of these documents, Minato. The furious voice seemed to thunder through the entire residence, and the massive door to the office known to all shinobi flew off its hinges and flew exactly a meter before bringing down its might on the floor. The right foot in a neat shoe appeared in the doorway first, followed by everything else. The enraged Senju quickly flew up to the desk of the owner of the office and brought down her fist on him. The table creaked, but it held. Apparently, this is not the first time he has suffered such violence against himself. All this time Namikaze was sitting at his desk. I cast a lazy glance at the broken door, the enraged slug princess, and mentally calculated how much it would cost to repair all this. "And I'm glad to see you, Tsunade-san," the Hokage's next shout stopped in an even voice. Seeing that it had no effect, he hurriedly raised his hand to the top and hurrah, she began to calm down. "What brought you to me? What is known about the disappearance of my goddaughter, her sister and mother? How can I have this fuss with?" A quick glance at the papers lying on the right side of the palm of my right hand. "I'm tired of all sorts of papers." "Hey," he sighed boringly, but continued his routine work. More than once he had the idea to take some kunoichi to his office as a secretary, a right-hand man, a person who would stop his rage, which would not work for nothing. Note: co-author, or shinobi, gender is generally not important. The main thing is that all of the above should be in one person and, moreover, devoted to him personally. Otherwise, using Darui as a messenger is not comme il faut. A steady knock on the door tore Kage away from his thoughts and forced him to throw the same ordinary and constant phrase, or rather a word, as his work with documents. The door opened and a very unusual person entered the room. According to the Reikage himself. Of all the newly arrived four, as it is not funny, it was this man who held himself the best, not an adult woman, but a boy. But when catching his eye, if you know how to read people, his confidence could be seen and felt. Who would not laugh at the Reikage? But he is sitting at his post for a reason. "Did you want something? Naruto-kun?" "Reikage-sama, I ask you to enroll me in the Umbu, *check*, Naruto thought. Interesting. Will a 13-year-old kid be able to get into the elite of Kyumo? You're talking to Umbu. Aren't you taking it too high?" Hei was amused. No, if it were an ordinary subordinate, there would be a sea of screams and loud curses demanding that he not be disturbed by the most polite sound. But here's the rub. He needs them. I know that nothing is given just like that, and that's why I came with such a request. In my opinion, my skills should be enough. In this way I want to work out all our benefits. The fact that Konoha sold us is known. But it will not provide a good life, and Kushina-san is not able to say that yet. To work? Either approved, or asked Uzumaki. Even so? On the one hand, it is profitable. Kyumo is gaining its power by any means. But children in Umbu? Although yes. This kid is certainly not ordinary, but even we have not practiced this, let alone other villages. True, there were some rumors about the castle, but these are only rumors. But there is, as always, this notorious but. This will ensure his loyalty. Or at least a sign that I trust him too. I'm sure, no matter how funny it sounds again, but he is the main one in their family. Straight harem of some kind. Grinning thought. Hey, okay. You'll be discharged from the academy tomorrow after class. So to speak, enjoy the last carefree day, and after classes I'm waiting for you at my place. The rest of the information is in place. Is that clear? Hi, you can go. That's right. I need their loyalty, or at least some kind of power of attorney, and not thoughts of running away from the village. No matter what kind of bastard Minato is, Kyumo respects his citizens and shinobi, and will not stoop to his level. And this idiot also fucked up Uzumaki's last legacy. It is necessary to update the law on disappearing clans. All hope for the restoration of this clan weighs on the kid. Darui reported that this girl is breathing unevenly to the guy. And on the one hand, the process will be long. You'll have to work, Naruto-kun. Ahaha, how tired I am of them, a thought flashed through Uzumaki's head on the periphery of his fading consciousness. Before he shamefully fell asleep with his head on the desk. And the reason for this thought was the hostile looks of the brats, compared to Naruto's real age. Note, co-author, and no less strange views of the entire female contingent of the class. No, they did not rest their eyes on him at the same time and constantly, but but stealthily throws something of his own. Someone was broadcasting a desire to kill by sonar, and someone was holding a fishing rod with a heart on a hook. Of course, not everyone behaved exactly the same, but there was a common thing. The carcass did not remain without attention for a second. Naruto, she was angry. Naruto was freaking out and just freaking out. She saw how some girls with eloquent expressions looked at Naruto and she herself did not understand her behavior, but she could not just leave it like that. Now she regretted most of all that she didn't sit next to Uzumaki. You ask, how did she see all this on the first desk? No, they didn't guess. There are no eyes on the back of the head, but she noticed a characteristic warming of the chakra in some girls when looking at a blonde. Everyone is dismissed, Sensei announced, looking at his watch. The classroom was filled with hubbub and all the animals tumbled out of the doors into the corridor, and then onto the street. Parents met their children. Mom? Naruto did not believe, looking at Kushina. She had never come to meet them yet. Although it's only been a week since they lived in a new place. Naruto. Come here. The cheerfully waving mother was a complete break of the template for the girl. She sometimes came with that nobody to meet them, but mostly it was her brother who was met, and she only had the sad look of her mother. And now Naruto was struggling with herself not to cry in front of everyone. They won't understand, but for her it's happiness. They also brought Mito. In her joy, the girl grabbed Naruto by the hand and dragged him to her mother and sister. Hi mom. A full-face smile and a big hug with her. Here is her cure for all sorrows and adversities at the moment. Many looked with interest at the disappearing clan in its entirety, which now settled in their village. What can you do? The earth is full of rumors, and they scatter from a small breeze. The heads of the clans were also present here. As soon as they found out that Uzumaki were in their village and there was a younger generation among them who were enrolled in the academy, then all their offspring and grandchildren, were immediately enrolled in one class, or neighboring ones. Even from home schooling, they sent him to study here. Will he become related to the Masters of Seals? With a clan that was stronger than two legendary clans like Senju and Uchiha? Considering that Uchiha has lost his legacy and there are only some among them who still use at least some of their former strength, and Senju has only one representative left who is able to prolong the genus, and then she is in Konoha. Don't make me laugh. Now all the clans present in the village want it. And why was there, by the way? They are stronger now. Well, maybe in the future for sure. And on such a note, one loud word killed all the seriousness. Dad. The 3-year-old girl shouted cheerfully and reached out with her hands to Naruto. And while fishing, the sun is shining and silence, that's where the silence is now. Such that a fly can be heard, which flies and disturbs the peace of peaceful shinobi. Atata, not good, yes Mito? Naruto smiled back. And how many times have I asked you not to call me dad? She just smiled nastily and covered her mouth with her sleeve. For a ride? Take a ride. Krasnovolska easily agreed and moved from her mother's hands to the neck of Dad. Kushina, I have to leave now, so let's hurry up. Of course, Naruto. Ahaha. She laughed nervously and walked with a strange gait to the exit from the courtyard of the academy. Yeah. Like Kunoichi, she should be able to control her emotions, but behaves like an ordinary girl. Basically, it's Kushina-san. In this text, an excerpt of a song from the film Three in a Boat Not Counting a Dog was used. Well, let's get acquainted. My name is Shinichi Kayama, and starting from today and until the order of the Reikage-sama, I am your captain, a dark-haired man of 35 years old said with a perky, slightly trusting and endearing smile. However, this is not a combat situation and people behave in any way in peaceful life. Well, now tell us about yourself. Of course, I have already read the documents for each of you, but I would like to hear something from you. That's about how my acquaintance with the new command in the UMBU began. In principle, everything went even somehow ordinary. What's with Kakashi's ideas, what's here? Well, unless the speaker added his call sign. What for? I don't know myself. Each of us was given a brief dossier on each member of the team, but perhaps the most pleasant thing is that there was practically no information about me. The team itself consisted of 5 people. Our captain, who has already introduced himself, and later retold his biography briefly, adding only insignificant data that was not in the dossier. Well, everyone else did the same. The funny thing is that our team consisted of my peers. 2 guys and 2 girls. Me, Akihiro Mori, Kimiko Yamashita and, attention, drum roll, Mika Nakajima star. During the Fourth World War, of course, I had to deal with the Cloud Shinobi many times, but I had never heard or seen that there were so many clans in Kumo. All the clan members from my village still stood out with their clothes and symbols, even when they introduced the general symbols of the alliance. But this was not noticeable in Kumo. In the same stone, fog, etc., representatives of clans could be seen everywhere. No, there were individuals among the Cloud, of course, who were different from others, but there were so few of them and there was nothing similar between them that it would be impossible to unite them into one clan. But even what I managed to learn about the Kumo clans in such a short time was enough for me. There were more of them than we had in Konoha. Yes, they were few in number, but there were plenty of them. However, you can return to the clans of my new village a little later. Because for half an hour we had an acquaintance, and then the newly made captain left us because of his urgent business. Well, at least that's what he said. He probably ran to report to the Reikage about his first impression and making plans for the future. And then it started. As soon as the captain left, my teammates broke through. Everyone started asking questions and literally torturing me. It turned out that they have known each other for a long time, as well as many children of this age. And I'm new, so my curiosity kicked in. And if you thought that geniuses and cold personalities were recorded in the ANBU, then you were mistaken. First of all, the talented and capable get here. And all the rules, dogmas, this is already being brought up in the future. First we have to have tough training sessions and only then any missions. In the meantime, we are ordinary children growing into teenagers. However, you can't call us children either. We are something in between. It seems that we think differently, but something like that slips through. That's why we will be weaned. And now such a thing has slipped through in my team, which tortured poor Uzumaki with amazing activity. After a couple of minutes, I managed to slip away under the first pretext that came to hand. I'm not ready for this yet, but it's necessary to bring Kushina-san up to date. Again a serious conversation and again weighing each word. Otherwise, my speeches may frighten her. But I had to warn in advance about not spreading. Even Naruto. It wasn't enough to drag her into all this. And the whole dialogue boiled down to the fact that I initiated her into the relative immediate plans and the reason why I joined the UMBU. Of course, I started with UMBU. Perhaps the simplest and at the same time the most difficult. An easy way with my current skills to earn decent money. And the rakage managed to explain the presence of such an unusual desire. Otherwise he would have sent me on my way. But it was to Kushina that I discovered the second bottom, which lay in the possibility of searching for survivors from the Uzumaki clan. No one will just let me officially leave the territory of the village, nor that of the country. But the lightning and the whirlpool are separated by a whole sea. Of course, in the former country it is unlikely that they will be there and disperse to the nearest territories, but the search will be extensive. And even if it is not possible to learn anything in the field of Umbu, then at least I will be able to break into the captains of teams or earn trust and move freely. Enrollment in the ANBU opened the first door to extensive opportunities, and then everything depends on me. But now it's not about that, but about Kushina-san's reaction. So you expressed a desire to serve in the ANBU in order to find the survivors of my clan? The red-haired woman sitting right in front of me asked, either shocked or furious. Why can't I decide on the emotions she expresses? It's pretty simple. The eyes express deep shock mixed with disbelief and some strange bewilderment. But the visible pulsating vein on the forehead in detail demonstrates the second version of emotions well. Moreover, I do not even know what to fear more, but Chuka suggests that we should be afraid of veins. And yes, how it is possible to experience all this at one moment, I myself do not know. What to say? Women. They violate any laws in terms of emotions. And if a man is capable of 2 or 3 emotions, then a woman will increase this number modestly 5 times. That's right, Kushina-san, the main thing is to keep a calm face, otherwise it is unknown what reaction will follow. I hope you keep this between us, okay? Oh. What about Naruto? She can ask questions. Tell her that I'm taking a special training course and I need to train separately. However, for some time I will still be able to allocate them a place in the schedule, but when the missions begin, it will be impossible. Them? The question sounded funny and somehow with a half smirk. Here it was necessary to allocate it to her. I'm talking about important things here, and she decided to tease me. Several other classmates asked me to train, but when I agreed, somehow I didn't take into account all the nuances. Therefore, when I move on to the active part, I will have to explain myself somehow. Okay. I understand you, but why do you need this? Well, I don't believe that the Uzumaki clan was completely destroyed and they are also my family. Even though I'm from another world, at least someone has to survive. While I am at the academy, such an opportunity will not appear at all. Well, to find an opportunity to inflict such a pretty wound on Konoha and poke their harder. And in the future, to deprive some individuals of their heads. I see, yes. One more thing. Kushina. Can you teach me the seals? And preferably as soon as possible. I understand that you have a lot of questions, but I have already answered some of them. I ask you to be patient for now. I will answer the rest later. A woman or a girl? Is it possible to call a woman who is not yet 30, but looks at all 20? Okay, whatever. Kushina sighed uncertainly and thought about something of her own, clearly calculating all the pros and cons and considering from different angles. Seeing her indecision, Naruto decided to voice the last, but for every mother a very important argument. I assure you, everything I find out, and in any other case, I will never turn against you. No, she amusingly shook her head in different directions and looked at me with sparkles in her eyes. I'm not worried about that. I'm just wondering when what? Aha. When will you tell me everything? When the time comes, the guy also answered cheerfully and clearly laughing at the girl. Mysterious and vague answers? So be it. I'll help, and I even have an idea how to shorten your training time. Here she clearly paused to think about everything properly, and I was in no hurry to rush her. And why would I? After all, so far everything is going the way I need. Even as a child, when I lived in the clan, we were taught from a young age, and because of the amount of knowledge that needs to be studied, first of all we were taught the basics, and later a special seal. Kushina turned out to be a very good teacher, if I may say so. She clearly explained the principle of the inscription and operation of this special seal. The whole point is that this is a kind of dome that protects the person inside from this world. Time there goes completely differently and many times faster. If about an hour passes in the real world, then a day will pass under the dome. That is, exactly 24 years will pass under it in a year. And nothing will happen to the person sitting inside. And morally he will not get tired. At least if he doesn't overdo it too much. And everything seems to be perfect, only the pros. Yes, but there are nuances, and they are significant. The main nuance is that only a representative of the Uzumaki clan or someone who has their blood in their veins can use this seal. The second disadvantage is the impossibility of being permanently inside. Continuous feeding of the barrier's own chakra is required. And he is far from modest and eats a lot. Only large reserves of Uzumaki and their rapid recovery allows you to use this seal for a long time. That is why this method is suitable for teaching the art of seals, and not ninjutsu. Other ways of killing one's neighbor that do not require abundant chakra costs are not prohibited. And fuinjutsu inside the barrier requires scanty costs, which allows them to be applied in practice. And how do you like my offer? This method is quite beneficial for you. You know the basics, since you already know how to work with several fuin seals. And you fit all the criteria. So in my opinion, this is the best choice for you. Agree? Who's here? It doesn't matter, just agree. Kurama? No. The voice is not the same. It's something different and similar in my inner world. I don't like all this. And I wasn't going to refuse. But still. Who was it? Okay, I'll find out later. It's not up to that now. And another mentor is expected in the near foreseeable future. It is necessary to carry out everything smoothly there. You think right, there was clearly a bit of respect and agreement from the side, and say hello? Or at least introduce yourself. You can't so unceremoniously break into my thoughts and make your comments. It's not that it bothers, but it's clearly annoying. Are you silent? Well, at least thank you for that. My next step after the conversation with Kushina was a conversation with the new captain. We will be trained as a team, but I wanted to train additionally. Captain Umbu has a lot to learn, and skills need to be restored. Kushina, of course, gave me a scroll with all the seals and individual trainings received back in the clan before leaving for Konoha. By the way, that's where she learned everything she knows. Naturally, Mito-san taught her while she could, but she learned most of her knowledge from the scroll. When asked how he had not yet appeared in the archives of Konoha, she simply did not show him to anyone, and thanks to the Dome of Time ***, she learned even before her marriage with Minato. But this knowledge will be extremely insufficient. We need experience. And who, if not the captain of the Umbu, can give it? But you can't be naive either. I discussed this point with the most reliable source of knowledge in the person of the same Kushina and found a way to solve the problem. Contract. You can sign a contract and take Shinigami as a witness, as the patron of the Uzumaki clan. Whoever violates it will immediately go to her halls. Well, at least his soul. The conditions I put forward are not too strict, so as not to get rejected. But the points about non-disclosure of the availability of separate training and what I would actually be taught were the main ones. There were some more, but they are not so important. His benefit is in high-quality training and teaching his own experience, which he turned out to have not so little. This is my personal, in the future, in any case, my help. The answer to the reasonable question, how can I help him, was brief. I undertake to render an equivalent service in any case that he needs. Do you agree? Cautiously and with a hidden hope, I decided to push my mentor to the answer. If everything is as you say, then yes. At least we are in the same team and we have to work together for a long time, the captain finished cheerfully and smiled fervently. He liked this guy, and the prospect of getting help or support from the head of the clan in the future, when you yourself do not belong to any of them, very much outweighed in the direction of consent. Yes, he is the captain of the Umbu and not one of the last. It's not for nothing that Reikage-sama assigned him to this team, to keep an eye on her. But if anything, he has practically no political weight. And the head of the Uzumaki clan, and dying out. Well, I think you've already realized everything yourself. Then we will continue everything tomorrow, after training with the team. Nakajima is a clan in Kyumo. Therefore, the drum roll. And then many may not understand. The clan was personally invented by me so that there would be no cries about the canon. Fuinjutsu, the dome of time. I described the principle of operation in the text. I didn't complicate things too much. Nobody needs it. Since most will read what it is and what it is eaten with and will forget about it. And some won't even read it. Everything is satisfied with the same standard and according to all the rules. Somehow it's even funny, the painting on the contract left a couple of drops of blood and the addition of seals to summon the one who has been the protector patron of the entire Uzumaki clan for many centuries. The characteristic weighting of the chakra and its certain coldness testified to the appearance of the one who was called. A Hanya mask with a stretched smile and protruding fangs. The eyes are dangerous on the one hand, and sad on the other. But this is just a mask, and no one knows what's behind it. Rather, no one knows except the Uzumaki themselves. Shinigami is an avatar in this world in the form of a man, and everyone is confident in the correctness of the attribution of this deity to a male person, but it's not like that at all. I don't know if she likes to introduce mortals into ignorance in this way, but whatever it was, and she is clearly not going to change the current order of things. The direction of the mask's eyes was directed at Naruto, and it was quite interested, curious, and obviously with a bit of nostalgia. Why the latter, no one will know, and no one needs to know this. It was no secret why she was called here. Already by the characteristic message in the appeal, everything became clear to her. As the patron of the clan, she fully approved of the actions of the young heir. One glance was enough for her to look at the man standing next to her, to look into his very essence and see everything she was interested in. I'm happy with an interesting representative of my kind. Otherwise, it's not for her to get into it. The affairs of mortals were of little interest to this truly immortal being. And so, young Uzumaki wants to conclude a contract? Everything was said with the usual, insipid voice, but what can I do? There is an outsider nearby and you need to maintain the image. Yes, Shinigami-sama. Naruto bowed and stared at the avatar again. He knew what he was going for and did not turn back now because of some ephemeral experiences. I approve of him and the personality you have chosen, but I want to make a change, and so that it suits both sides, then it will conclude the following. You can make changes to the contract itself only by verbally pronouncing the essence of the change and expressing the consent of both parties. Is that okay with you? The young man and the man thought about it, but in principle there was no point in saying a word against it, and why? A perfectly reasonable change. There will be no need to write something new on the contract every time and summon the deity in a new way. Yes, and it can be offended if it is constantly pulled. And so I took it, said, agreed, and voila, everything immediately takes effect and it will also be displayed in writing. So be it. From this moment on, you are bound by bonds, for violation of which you will be punished. Fast and inescapable, the deity said, receiving nods to his question. The scroll glowed with a bright light, but not like the daytime sun, but rather the dim light of a lantern. Considering that it was night in the neighborhood, everything was clearly visible. "Well, sensei, when will we start?" the blonde asked in a rather even voice, although it only seems that way. The very realization of a conversation with Shinigami is truly a bright event in life. Let it not be noticeable, but Naruto was internally shaken by the experience. But to some extent he was even proud that he was able to ask his question in such an intonation. But his sensei was clearly broken and amazed. His face is white, his right eye is slightly twitching, and a nervous smile gave him away. In other respects, he is forgivable. In my past world, too, almost no one saw Shinigami, only if, as a consequence of the call of Orochimaru, and each such phenomenon terrified everyone who witnessed this action. What can we say about a person who is not familiar with the tailed ones and even from the stories could not really know anything about this deity? For there was no need to summon her. I can bet that only my clan has practiced this call, and only as a last resort, that it understands in itself about the non-disclosure of this event. Yeah. I'm a little old for this, but what can I do? Representatives of the clan of Seal Masters are able to surprise. I didn't think that a 13-year-old kid could do such a thing. The man shook his head, but then smiled kindly. However, I knew what I was going for. Still, I got acquainted with fragmentary, but at least some information about Shinigami in advance. Yes? I wonder when. And what could you possibly know? That the creature that sealed our contract is called a Shinigami? And there's nothing to be sarcastic about. Kayama was indignant, but then he also smiled. Since you and I are now so tied up, then I think one small veil of secrecy can be removed. Reikage-sama made every Umbu get acquainted with all the available information about your clan as a last resort. And what is this extreme case? You know, I can't say. I am also bound by an oath. Yes, and it will be considered a violation of my duty. I see. Shinigami watched the boy leave the clearing with a cheerful look and thought about something of her own. Shur-chan. How did it go? A loud exclamation jarred on the ears, and the said Shur-chan frowned. That's exactly who was missing, so it's her. The angry thought was directed at the newcomer. And the new actor was quite beautiful. Of course not everyone will dare to say this, but no one will refute this fact. Fiery red hair with a hint of red decorated with a golden diadem in the form of a kind of uneven triangle with images of flames at the ends. Just below the forehead were pronounced piercing red eyes. White-red haori with the same flames. And when it appeared, the appearance and decay of the solar phoenix, enveloped in flames, completed the whole picture. Do you have the predominance of all red on you as always? With some mockery, she turned her question to the beautiful Shinigami person. Oh Shur-chan, just don't start. You always just want to ruin everything. We're friends. I don't remember anything like this. When did you manage to become my friend? The positive of the red-haired girl, the girl did not seek to share. Buka. Well, anyway, I decided to run into another issue. How is Naruto-kun? Did you tell him or did you decide not to tell him yet? About what? Our first secret or our second? I will give an answer in advance, so as not to hear your chirping. No. I haven't initiated him into anything yet. Moo. Well, everything is clear. Shur-chan is mysterious and untouchable as always. However, something must be unchanged, right? And when do you plan to tell him at all? When the time comes, and don't get involved in all this, you know I have privileges in this regard. And you always like to point out everything that separates us. I just hope that the yellow-haired boy can melt your cold heart. Well, or at least to arouse interest. The altercation continued for a long time. Yes, and always had the same character. What can I do, these two have such a peculiar relationship. One is ready to love the other for everything, and the other is zealously resisting this. Which, however, does not prevent them from enjoying it in their own way. And can old friends seriously treat each other with hostility? Rather, it is a tribute to tradition and nothing more. By the way, why did you make changes to the contract? Aren't you afraid he'll find out something? And what might he find? With the same mockery, Shurchan distorted the question, only if some slightly headless creatures do not enlighten him. And so, how can he know that I never make any changes? Okay. Your truth, I'm home. Uzumaki announced the obvious to everyone as he entered his new home. Having performed all the necessary ceremonial upon arrival home and eating, Naruto sat down at the table with a happy face and prepared to eat everything that would not be offered for his hungry stomach. Kushina marveled at his appetite, but shook her head and still smiled. She was pleased that her food was so appreciated. To the great pleasure of the blonde, no one asked him any questions. Apparently they decided to give them a good meal before asking questions. After the meal, he did not get rid of this fate. Naruto immediately bombarded him with questions from the series. Where have you been? How was your day? But Uzumaki was not going to tell how everything really was, so after getting off with general phrases with average explanations, he took Mito on his knees, as she asked with her exclamations, played with her a little and reported his fatigue, went to bed. The next day, Naruto jumped up before everyone else, since training with the team was scheduled earlier than yesterday, and he didn't really want to explain to Naruto that he wouldn't appear at the academy anymore. And in order to avoid all this, he quickly swallowed all the food, silently closing the door, immediately went towards the landfill assigned to their team. After walking for a relatively short time, only about 15 minutes, on the move thinking about how to explain himself to Naruto and simultaneously thinking about a parallel dialogue, only with the new students, Uzumaki went to the clearing of the polygon. The newly minted sensei is already here and his two teammates are also here. It remains to wait for the last young lady and you can start. And where was my willpower at the moment when I undertook to teach them? I think women's eyes with a confusion of emotions create a terrible force. That's the end of it.